Champa, Johnny. You think you're slick? You think you're slick? Nah, bro. Nah.
You still suck.
Anybody, I don't care who, wants it. Come and get it.
It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
All right, believe it or not, WWE had a house show, a super show in the Netherlands yesterday, and they had the Bloodline versus the Street Profits versus Austin Theory, Grayson Waller in a three-way. There's a lot of footage on Twitter if you want to watch little clips. But I tell you, the thing that shocked me the most was they had Gunther versus Ilya Dragunov. And some people, I don't understand. I mean, people are just going gaga over the match and they only record 30 seconds of it. It's not like security told them, hey, don't record it. Nobody recorded the full match, but from what you see online, incredible. Gunther and Ilya Dragunov make beautiful music together. And it wasn't even an announced match in advance for the Netherlands. Go figure. So how's everybody doing today? For all you AEW fans that checked out All In, are you tired? Since 11 o'clock this morning, AEW has been the focus of the day. All In went down earlier today. The pay-per-view officially started at 1 p.m., ended around 5-ish, give or take a little bit. And some surprises, some unexpected victories. And Bryan Danielson, the new AEW World Heavyweight Champion. And, back in January 2022, I think it was January 5th to be exact. You remember this banner that we posted? Will it ever happen? Because about 2.5 years ago, we had this discussion about Bryan Danielson telling AEW management, I do not want to be world champion. Put it on your Stars of Tomorrow. I want to help build the Stars of Tomorrow. I do not want the championship. Cody Rhodes, similar situation. Sting, obviously, because if Sting were to become heavyweight champion sooner, he had his whole career undefeated. So I think fans would have kind of seen right through that. Listen, we all like nostalgia. We all like nostalgia to an extent. But I think putting the AEW World Championship on Sting would have been beyond jumping the shark. But Bryan Danielson, for a couple of years, did not want to become AEW World Champion. But for the betterment of the company, for the betterment of TV deals, for the betterment of its immediate future, Bryan Danielson changed his mind. Now, I know he is getting some criticism because people think, oh, he's not going to wrestle full time. Listen, I have nothing but respect for people in my fellow podcast community, journalists, bloggers, even fans that express that opinion. But before you open your mouth and make a remark that Bryan Danielson's only going to fight part-time, tell me who in AEW, maybe Swerve to an extent, but MJF did not have that many matches as world champion. I mean, go back and do some research on statistics and look up numbers before you open your mouth. This is not the WWE schedule. You know, we've brought it up in the past. How many wrestlers? Yeah, we brought up Saraya recently. Now, of course, Saraya is not a main eventer anymore. Some people even feel that she's kind of like mid-card with name value. But in her 2 years with AEW, she's had a total of 10 singles matches. You know, and the only reason why I'm bringing her up is because she's the last person that we researched. Bryan Danielson arguably has had more matches than maybe MJF in the last year or two. So what are these people, what point are they trying to make? I think it sounds good. I think it sounds like it makes sense, but, you know, let's see what they do. You know, let's see if Bryan Danielson keeps it for 2 months. He may drop it to Darby Allin at Grand Slam. If he loses the championship in 2 months and has 2 title reigns, is that much different? How many times? I mean, seriously, I think some people don't think before they talk, but I'm not criticizing it. I'm not. Bryan Danielson has done a shitload for wrestling over the years. One of the most beloved wrestlers of this generation. Maybe a little bit Shangada in the brain. You know, maybe if he didn't have this uber recklessness, abandonment, and I'm not criticizing it, but maybe he wouldn't have the next issues that he has now. You know, there's an old saying, if you play, you must pay. And look at Rey Mysterio. Look at Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio is probably the best example I could give. That motherfucker is still wrestling 30 years later. You look at how many knee surgeries he's had, how many other surgeries. Do you see him doing half the things he used to? No. Why? Because he understands that our bodies have limitations and they break down. And he realized that, hey, if I want to still do this and do this for a few more years, I got to kind of change my in-ring repertoire. I don't just turn around and say, you know what? Balls to the wall. I got problems with my brakes. You know, this is the last car race that I have. I got a little bit of problems with my brakes. Fuck it. Fuck it. I won't race after this. Nah, man. Fix your brakes. Slow down a little bit. That's my honest opinion. But hey, I'm not the one in the ring. AJ Styles, great example, Prince Albert's. AJ Styles. AJ Styles realized, you know, a lot of people realize, hey, if I still want to do this at a latter age, I got to tone it back a little bit. And, you know, it makes you wonder sometimes if wrestlers feel that unless they do crazy shit, that they won't be as beloved. I honestly think for Bryan Danielson, it's more of an adrenaline rush than anything else. At this stage of the game, Bryan Danielson does not have to do half of what he does in the ring. And we all would love him just as much. You look at Sting and his AEW career. I'm not comparing Sting to Bryan Danielson. Sting did not do that much. It was a lot of smoke and mirrors, let's be honest. But did most of us care? We were getting to see a little bit of nostalgia. It's okay. You know, it's fine. I think Bryan Danielson, it's more of an adrenaline rush, and a lot of wrestlers are like that. So I thought AEW All In was an excellent pay-per-view. It was long, but it seemed like the time flew a little bit more than I expected. Now, for anybody that follows me on Twitter, I know I don't post much on Twitter, but those who follow me on Twitter know this morning at around 9 a.m., I posted video here in my neighborhood, right around the block from my office. We had a water main break and shit got all fucked up. My whole shopping center got flooded. And I even posted video of me walking in the office and there was water pouring out of the roof, the ceiling. of the bathroom. So today for about 6 hours, I did nothing but mop and clean, and I watched AEW from my office. I had it on blast. I didn't have any customers show up today. I had it on full blast. I was listening to it. I was watching. I was cleaning my office. Thank God my office didn't get filled with shit. Because if you saw the video, some stores on my block, they had all this sewage go into their places. And you know what was interesting about it? If you look at the video, it's a sushi place, it's an Asian nails place, and it's a Japanese like a juice bar and hookah bar or something. And I'm like, Asian, Japanese, Chinese, I mean, do they care that their places got flooded with shit? I mean, I was literally at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I went outside to get a little bit of air, and I looked down the block. Nobody showed up. Everybody else is like mopping and airing their stuff out. And I look on the corner, I'm like, wow, you know, the Asian nail place and a Japanese sushi place and a hookah bar, like, do they care? Nah, today, my day off. I don't care. That's what it seemed like. Crazy. Just being honest. If they were all Italian places, I would have been like, hey, get off your ass. I don't know. It was just interesting, coincidental. All right. I will, on the Daily News Update later this evening, because, yes, I have to tape the Daily News Update after this sit-down episode. This episode is about you. Everybody who is live, tell me what you want to talk about. If you want me to continue talking about All In, I will. If you want me to change the subjects, I will. But before I do that, I just want to give you a little preview as far as what's going to be on the Daily News Update tonight, because it may sway you to wait until I do the update. What I plan on putting on the update tonight, it's loaded. I'm going to give you the quick results from All In. Talk about Swerve Strickland's new contract extension with AEW. He signed a contract extension today. It was already done, but they did it, you know, on video for, you know, entertainment purposes at the 0 hour today. The WWE Super Show results from the Netherlands, and there's actually one that's going down as we speak. I might have those results later tonight. We'll talk about Ricochet and his AEW debut. I'm sure we'll talk about it here tonight as well. Julia had her last ever match in Japan, well, for now, earlier today. So she is on her way officially to NXT. Wembley will be the home for All In 2026. Remember when Tony Khan had that press conference in Texas a week or so ago, no mention of Wembley when he said that All In was coming back to the UK in 2026. Wembley today made it official. On their Twitter, Wembley said that AEW will be coming back to Wembley in 2026. So, you know, be prepared. They are going to come back to where they were today. By the way, off topic, if you follow on Monday shows, you know we've been exposing people who intentionally post wrong information for extra hits. There is a pretty big podcast out there that intentionally went on Twitter and wrote that 90,000 fans were at Wembley today, all singing the final countdown for Bryan Danielson. And we're going to expose them on Monday. But when you look at their feed and you look at their responses, 90% of the responses are like, bro, no, it was more like 40,000 or maybe 50,000. They purposely wrote 90,000 because they knew they were going to get tons of people saying, bro, you got it wrong. What are you, nuts? 90 people do that shit intentionally. The extra hits. Now it's going to get 1 million views. Just, that's desperation to me. Terrible. Forbidden Door was officially announced for London as well in 2025. Grand Slam 2025 will be going to Australia. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. NXT had another live event yesterday in Orlando, Florida. JBL shows up at GCW. What's up with JBL all of a sudden making indie appearances? I don't know. I mean, JBL, did he lower his asking price? Because JBL suddenly popping. He showed up at AAA. He's giving clotheslines to Effie. So we'll talk about that in the daily news update. We got some video clips as well. WWE cancels an upcoming Super Show, and I have the information as to why. And we'll do a little Raw preview. So that's what we have planned for later this evening for the daily news update. So I think Wembley today had about 55,000. I've been saying for weeks now I expected 55 to 60,000. And I'll tell you this much. Listen, I'm not going to suddenly gush over AEW because they had their WrestleMania today. I want to make that clear. If you see, I mean, with all due respect, guys, look at some people's social media accounts. You know, you can't just say great fucking show, loved it, had a great time. No, they got to capitalize every other word. They got to put emojis. They got to put, you're not crying, I'm crying. You're not shaking, I'm shaking. This cinema, you know, when you shit on the product for 3 months and you get kind of like cake and ice cream, you had a 9-course meal today. And you know what your 9-course meal was? Cake, cookies, donuts, French fries, pizza, cake, more cookies, more ice cream. Oh my God, this is amazing. And then next week, when the hits and views start to decline, then it's back to crapping on shit again. I'd rather just give a nice, normal compliment and get virtually no attention to it than to repeatedly bash something or suddenly gush like I'm about to have an orgasm over it. You know, I got news for you. There's people in AEW that aren't that stupid. They could see right through a lot of people out there. I want to be part of the conversation. So I can't just write normal English. I got to capitalize every other word. This is cinema. I thought the show was great. Gave a little bit for everyone. I wish Ricochet did not debut in ring. I know technically he didn't lose, but still, you know, I would have liked to see him maybe make an appearance, show up. He could have attacked someone. He could have come up with a different mask, pull it off, and it shows Ricochet. But hey, he's in AEW now, and, you know, it's Ricochet doing Ricochet things. There's no reinvention here. You know, listen, when Cameron Grimes got released, it was going to be all about repackaging himself. When Dijak got released, it's all about reinventing. When this person got released, Elias got released. And you notice, even Madcap Moss, you notice like 6 months later, they look pretty much the same. They're acting pretty much the same. They're doing pretty much the same because they just realize, fuck, I guess I'm not as creative as I thought I would, you know? But with Ricochet, he doesn't need to change anything. Ricochet could do Ricochet things. And the cool thing about Ricochet in AEW is that he has a lot of people that he could have matches with that you might have seen on the indie circuit. You might have seen it, you know, for your local promotion. But for mainstream wrestling fans on a bigger platform, they never saw it. So Ricochet going to AEW, that is so much different than a Cameron Grimes or a Dijak or someone. This is a guy that is now going to spread his wings. How far he goes in AEW, I don't know. But it was cool to see him today. It was very cool to see the grizzled young veterans. I mean, they've done a little bit of stuff in Impact Wrestling, TNA. They've done a bunch of stuff on the indie circuit. I don't know how far they go. I almost feel like they're destined for Ring of Honor, with all due respect. The grizzled young veterans, they're great. I absolutely enjoy their work. We'll see what they do over there. Luchasaurus, I mean, kind of like a split from the patriarchy. I mean, they lose the trios titles, and suddenly Killswitch shows up as Luchasaurus in the gauntlet. And suddenly him and Christian are no more. And it's like the patriarchy are done. And I was like, that's it? That's it? You know, it's almost like, I think of Otis, and I think of Chad Gable. Now, of course, AEW is not going to give that kind of TV time to Killswitch and Christian Cage week after week after week leading up to it. but we've had like a year or two of Christian kind of like abusing Kill Switch. You couldn't like wait a couple of extra weeks or maybe lead a bigger tease up to today and then have the fans get behind Kill Switch that they just want to see him attack Christian, and then he turns like kind of like what Otis did with Chad Gable. He just shows up in a gauntlet with a name change and a different mask. That's the only thing I probably didn't like. That's what I'm saying, Ramson. He didn't turn on Christian. And he came out as Luchasaurus. It's like, and by the way, Christian Cage, he abused Kill Switch after they lost the belts. We're going to see probably on Collision, Christian is going to bully him a little bit more. And then it's the end. The patriarchy is now going to morph into something else. Oh, God. Did I just dig myself in a rabbit hole? He helped Christian. I get it. But they're now teasing Luchasaurus's return. All right, let me say it like this. Luchasaurus, good guy. Kill Switch, bad guy. That's it. By the way. Oh, yeah. Oh, look at this. Danielle Benoit was at All In today. Danielle Benoit. We got to put that clip on every episode from now on. We got to find like the perfect moment. He does look like Daniel Benoit, right? Daniel Benoit was at All In today. You guys, Kevin and I did a special episode on YouTube 3 weeks ago. And we announced that we were going to do the next one around Halloween. And we got a whole bunch of, not hate mail, but complaints like Halloween. You know, we did it beginning of August. Like, that's the end of October. Why so late? And we got a lot of emails. And believe it or not, it was Kev who came to me and said, DT, you want to do one sooner? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So 3 weeks from today, September 15th, 2024, Kevin and I will be live once again on YouTube, 8 o'clock p.m. for another special episode. So mark it down, September 15th. And look, if we get a nice turnout, I will talk to Kev about doing it once a month. And by the way, these sit-downs, it appears they're going to stay on Sunday. We did a poll earlier this week. I asked you guys to vote. Do you want it to stay on Fridays or do you want me to move it back to Sundays at 8? And almost 4-1, you voted that you wanted it back on Sundays. Friday, everybody and their grandmother is doing a SmackDown recap, a Rampage recap, a nighttime recap. You know, so many people doing shows, not too many do it on a Sunday night. So we're back on Sundays. It's official. We're back on Sundays. So next Sunday, we'll be here. All right. By the way, what do I want to show you? Oh, all right. We'll get to the floored questions in a minute. Yes, a lot of you brought to my attention the last 24 hours about Dory Funk Jr. being involved in an exploding death match in Japan. At 82 years old? I don't know exactly how old Dory Funk Jr. is. I think he's around 82. You know, in the last 48 hours, we unfortunately had the anniversary of Bray Wyatt's passing and Terry Funk's passing. You guys may remember a year ago, this guy was acting like a little pussy here, crying his eyes out. My favorite wrestler of all time and my favorite wrestler in the last 10 years both died within a day, pretty much a day of each other. Just an absolute awful feeling a year ago, and it still sucks. Honestly, I'll say this. I did see the footage. I'm not going to lie to you. When I saw it, I honestly thought this was Ric Flair for a second. If you look at these pictures, I honestly thought that was Ric Flair for a second. I'm like, you know, like, what happened? Like a car from Car Shield exploded? Those warranties? Car Shield! My engine is giving me problems. Rick, can you help? No, he's actually in Japan. Listen, he took one bump. He didn't sell it. In fact, I even got the footage. Somebody sent me the footage. Take a look. When I first saw this, I thought Dory Funk was the one in the red. And then I realized, I'm like, he just stood there and did nothing. He's 82 fucking years old. You know why he was in Japan? He don't need the money. He was in Japan for two reasons. They paid tribute to his brother, and it was the 50-year celebration of Onita wrestling. You know, a lot of people, I think, don't remember or don't realize that Onita, you know, one of the most infamous matches that I remember early as a wrestling fan, I think it was 1979, the concession stand brawl. Everybody remembers the concession stand brawl with, in Memphis. Onita was in one of them. And that was, I think, 79 or it was early 81. So Onita's been around. Onita started wrestling in the mid-70s, early to mid-70s. So that's why Dory Funk was there. He wasn't in any jeopardy. People left. I mean, yes, it looked crazy stupid, but it wasn't like he had a full-blown match. He was in the ring. They did, a spot, a little explosion. Nothing happened. It was just a tribute. I can't criticize that. I can't criticize. I will say this, though. You go back and look at the footage. You know what depresses me about it? If anybody remembers FMW from the mid-90s, anybody that remembers FMW from the mid-90s, you remember what those turnouts used to be like. Remember all those shows with Wing Kanemaru and, Cactus and Terry Funk and Onita and everybody else? Look at the turnout for this one. Look at this one more time. Just look at the crowd. What do they have, like 300 fans? I don't even know if they had 300 fans. I mean, it's a celebration for Onita, 50 years. It's crazy. By the way, I do have one quick announcement for those who have been asking for it. I have some good news, but you're going to have to wait until next week. Remember the origins of this photo? This is the first ever appearance ever made on camera doing any type of indie wrestling stuff back in 2006. Richard Ramirez actually sent me the footage. He was able to code it, run some codecs, and he was able to burn it, and I have the full video. We'll play it next week. Today, I figured you probably want to talk a little bit more on the all-in side and some of the things that went down from it. So stuff with me, we can wait till next week for. So next week, you'll get that. And one last plug. Tomorrow, Kevin and I, as part of the DTKC show, we will be doing a preview and predictions for Bash in Berlin, which takes place next weekend. So I hope you could join us live, dtkcdiscord.com. So now, let's go over to the floor. Let's see what you all want to talk about. And I want to thank you all for joining me, whether you're live or on the archive. For everybody who is a channel member, whoever is a patron, thank you very much. Even if you download the shows, all that helps because Kevin and I do not have sponsors. I don't think you want me to interrupt the show and start talking about Blue Chew and razor blades and cereal and real estate and life insurance and everything else that everybody plugs. We don't do any of that here. I don't want to start doing that. So you downloading the shows, telling a friend about the shows, posting a review, signing up a Patreon, channel member, super chats, that all keeps us alive. Don't feel like you have to ever spend a penny, though. If you keep, that's just want to remind you we don't have sponsors. So, all right. I want to acknowledge a couple of people who sent in some questions early, and let's get into them. All right. Jimmy James, thank you for the 10 spot. Jimmy says, I remember the crazy ratings prediction I made about the SmackDown debut on Fox. What do I think NXT's debut on CW will score? Keep up the awesome content. Thank you, Jimmy. I don't remember the exact rating for Fox, but I do remember I was within, I think, 1,000 of the rating. What was it, like 3.8 million or 3.9 million, something like that? I remember I put up a prediction on the DTKC show like a week early, and then like a couple of days before, I said, no, I'm going to add 1 million or 1.5 million to it. And I changed it to like 3.9 or 3.88 or something like that, and was within 1,000, the rating. I'm going to say something here that's probably going to blow some people away. I think for the first episode, there is a very good chance this will happen. But if it doesn't happen on the first episode, it'll happen by episode 2. They're going to break 1 million. NXT on the CW network is going to break 1 million. And I'll tell you why I believe it's going to break 1 million. Yes, CM Punk will be there for the first week. Yes, for the first week, because they're going to be in Chicago. The second week is Randy Orton. But it's not just that, and listen, again, they're going to be in 10,000 seat arenas. That's why they're putting main roster people on there. They want to sell out the arenas. You can't sell out 10,000 seats, expect to sell out 10,000 seats with Trick Williams and Ethan Page and Roxanne Perez and Hank and Tank and Sol Ruka and Lola Vice and everybody else. They're fucking talented. But that is very, 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 very unlikely to sell out 10, 12,000 seats. You got to put WWE stars in it. Plus, they're debuting on the CW network. They want to debut with a bang. They want CW to be like, whoa. And my wife just went, wow. Yeah, seriously. So it's not about just sticking it to AEW for their Title Tuesday that they're going to do. It's not that. There's a bigger picture here. Listen, I'm not trying to sound like a jerk right now. TKO Group Holdings could give a shit. Is that the real Kev Castle? Kev, what's up, Kev? Tomorrow, big show, predictions, September 15th. We're here. What's up, Kev? But, I'm not trying to say to sound like a jerk. TKO Group Holdings care less about AEW. They're on such a roll right now. Why would they care? And that's not a rude or a negative thing. WWE is just focused on WWE. And AEW should stay focused on AEW. And I think if AEW stays focused on AEW and sell the fans, and this is the methodology that Kevin's live right now with us. This is the methodology that we started doing in 2006. And I'm not comparing us to AEW, but the concept is the same. I used to make fun of every fucking show out there that there was at that time. The In Your Heads, the Wrestling Observers, and everything else. And then someone got through my head and say, listen, don't expect your fans to tune in because everybody else sucks. You want them to tune in because you're good, not because they suck. And once we focused on giving everybody a good show, we shot to number one. And it's this, listen, is AEW going to surpass WWE? No, of course not. But if AEW tells fans, tune into us because we're good. Now, yes, I get it. We're the best wrestle. Okay, fine. You think you got the greatest wrestlers? You think I got the most talented wrestlers in the world? That's fine. Stop ripping WWE. Stop conspiracy theories. Stop trying to make it seem like they're the Harvey Weinstein of the WWE. Just forget they exist. Just show everyone why AEW is so fucking good. Not because you're better than somebody else, that just you're good. And I think AEW would create such a different vibe. Today, there was nothing that made it feel like there were shots at WWE. None. There was no shots at WWE. There was no need to. AEW put on a great fucking pay-per-view today, and you just do what you do, and that's it. Not everything is going to hit a home run. I see a very generous super chat that came in about Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker. Yeah, we'll talk about that. But not everything hits a home run. But AEW just got to focus on AEW. And I'm telling you, man, they definitely could boost their morale and perception. And just because you say that it's the most fun place to work, Yeah. Shit, if I was able to dress down every day at the office, I'd say my office is the most fun place to work. If I went to school and I could show up with shorts and I could listen to my fucking iPod all day, they're out of touch, but you know what I mean. If I could just bring junk food and eat it all day long while I'm in science class, I'm crunching on Doritos. Wow, this is fucking great. What an awesome class. What a great teacher. Yeah, when you can do whatever the fuck you want and you don't have restrictions, everything feels great. If my dogs were able to shit all over the house and tear up every piece of paper they could find and chew on wet, dirty socks all day long and piss in my face, it'd probably be like, this is the greatest fucking house ever. Anybody would say that. So when you hear Mercedes and others saying this about AEW, people look at that and they're like, yeah, no wonder why Jennifer Pepperman says what she says. Because you don't have people breathing down your neck and saying, this is stupid. The hell is this? Remember the lawsuit? Remember that woman that cried racism that ended up throwing the lawsuit out? Wasn't Jennifer Pepperman named in that lawsuit as well? I'm not saying that she's a bad person. All I'm saying is that, when you work for a summer camp, of course everything seems epic, amazing, unbelievable. This is the greatest job of them all. Shit. I can do whatever I want. Just got to make the boss feel like he's loved and wanted. And this is a 50-some-odd-year-old nobody looking at it like that. Imagine someone that is in the business executive world that is a millionaire that looks at AEW that way. Think about executives on Warner Brothers Discovery or investors or anybody that wants to do business with AEW, and they look at it and they see that the owner is perceived as a kid. Why do you think all the executives in the business world look at Tony Khan and they say, oh, he's Shahid Khan's kid. He's 40 fucking years old. He's not a kid. They look at him as the kid. Oh, it's his kid. They don't take him seriously. There's a reason why. All right. Thank you, Bernard. He says, I'm far from nobody. None of us here are nobodies. But I'm just saying, in your overall scope of things, unfortunately, we don't really have a big voice. But collectively, all of you and me, we do have a big voice. We do. By the way, for everybody who asked for a picture last week, I know it's personal stuff, but I'll share it. This is a picture of my two doggies right now. That is Bella on the left, and that is Bruno on the right. Bella is now 8 months old, and Bruno is 5 months old. And I still think we should have named him Gizmo. But yeah, those are my two dogs. So, all right, enough of the cutesy stuff. Let's talk about the not so cutesy stuff. And that was the match that went down at All In between Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné. Ronnie, very generous, sent in $50 earlier today. He says, thank you for bringing these back to Sundays and at 8. I can now listen live while doing security. Quick question. Oh, by the way, I think Aaron Judge hit number 50 and 51 today. I know Ronnie's a big Yankee fan. Quick question from All In. What are my thoughts on the Britt Baker versus Mercedes Moné match? Britt is the one getting an insane amount of heat by fans. I tell you, I watched the Britt Baker Mercedes Moné match. I watched the ending, and I'm not defending either woman. If you watch the ending more than once, it doesn't look as bad. It really doesn't. I'm not saying that, just saying that. If you watch it more than once, the ending doesn't look as bad. But I found it pretty fascinating because Mercedes Moné has been getting killed online by a good amount of the loud wrestling fans. She sucks on the mic. Look at how awful her stuff is in AEW. This is, she has creative control. I mean, how much ripping of Mercedes have you seen the last month and a half? There's been a lot. And today, after All In their match, Britt is the one getting a crazy amount of hate. And she just returned to the ring. Now, this is my honest take. You know me. And I'm not just saying this to kiss ass. I tell it like it is. I don't put capital words. I don't put emojis. I don't hashtag people's names to get noticed. I tell you how I feel. Whether 10 people see it or 10,000 people see it, I say the same thing. I'm not necessarily defending Britt Baker here. She hasn't been in the ring all that much for quite some time. So I do believe there was somewhat ring rust, maybe a little bit of nerves associated with it. But there's a big but here. I watched Toni Storm versus Saraya last week. And for channel members on YouTube, did I put that at the beginning of yesterday's news update? I don't think I did. I got to check because I'm not sure if I'll get hit with copyrights yet. No, I haven't put it online yet. Somebody put a split screen and put Becky Lynch, I think, versus Naomi. Or no, it was Becky Lynch and Bayley, I believe. And then underneath it was Toni Storm and Saraya. They're doing the same moveset. And when I put the video up, I put 45 speed versus 33 speed, like records. When you watch them in sync, it's not just Saraya who is slow as fuck. It's Toni Storm who is slow as fuck. And it is sloppy, and it is not good. Do I blame Toni Storm? Not necessarily. Because and I'm using them to explain Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné. And damn, I'm a little pissed off that I didn't put the video here because I probably, actually, you know what? I can't do it here live. I'll put it up next week here. I'm sure by then you all see it on Twitter, but I'll put it up next week. If I put it without sound, we won't get in any trouble. But this is what it has to do with Mercedes and Britt Baker. I blame this 100% on AEW. And I'll tell you why. I don't necessarily blame it on Jennifer Peppermint because she is writer. She's not in by the ring and saying, no, do that over. You do that. No, that doesn't look good. She's writing. She's writing a story. You could write Giglia. Didn't we use that movie? No, that doesn't sound right. What's that movie that we brought up a couple of weeks ago with Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck? I think it was Giggly or something like that. You could write what you think is the greatest movie around. If the actors cannot act it out, the movie sucks. You could have a shit movie with great actors. And no matter how great the actors act, if the movie sucks, it's going to suck. So you have Jennifer Peppermint writing, but who is the person doing the reps over and over and over? Doing the reps, having these people do this 10, 20, 30, 50 times. It's the greatest place to work. Why? Do you ever hear anything outside of Dustin's school or the Nightmare Factory? I don't know if QT Marshall has a school, but outside of people who are part of those schools, do you ever hear about anybody like in the ring doing reps over and over and over again? A whole bunch of Medusa told that story about a month ago that Medusa was at AEW and Dustin Rhodes, this is a true story. Go check out Medusa's podcast and watch it. She told the story that she was at AEW and then Dustin Rhodes told the whole women's roster, listen, in 2 days, whatever it was, Medusa is gonna be here and she's gonna be in the ring. And anybody who wants to work out and pick her brain and, do some stuff, it's open to everyone. Medusa shows up. Nobody was there. Medusa goes to Dustin Rhodes and says, where is everybody? And Dustin Rhodes says to Medusa, oh, it was optional. Nobody fucking showed up. Of course it's the most awesome place to be. Where are all the news reports of people working out in the ring over and over and over? You hear about Joe Hendry at the Performance Center on 5 days a fucking week. You see clips of Undertaker going down to the Performance Center. You think Undertaker did that for a good video op? Oh, I look good. Let me show Keith Lee how to do this and do this and do this. You don't ever, 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 ever hear people doing reps over and over and over again, working out. So you know what happened today, in my opinion, with Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker? Remember when Becky Lynch went to NXT? Remember when Becky Lynch had the series of matches with Tiffany Stratton? If you remember the first or second match, they were good. But by the time they were doing house shows, they were killing it. Tiffany Stratton was killing it. Now, take that and go an extra year before. Picture Tiffany Stratton a year earlier having those same matches with Becky Lynch. They would have not looked as good. I think what happened today is when you have Britt Baker surrounded with Riho, and I'm not criticizing those women. Riho, Nyla Rose, Julie Hart, Big Swall, Little Swall, Kiera Hogan. Like you look at their roster. All right, Chris Statlander, exception to the rule. You're working with people who are on the indie level. Mercedes Moné has been in WrestleMania that has fought a Bianca Belair, that's fought a Charlotte Flair, that's fought a Bayley at NXT TakeOver, that's fought the best of the best. So when Mercedes Moné gets in the ring with those talents, Mercedes Moné knows, I got to turn my shit up a notch because those motherfuckers are going to turn their shit up a notch as well. With Britt Baker, you know what it seemed like tonight? This is what it seemed like, that they practiced for this match. But I think Mercedes Moné is, don't worry about it. I've done WrestleMania. I've done Bayley, Charlotte Flair. I know what I'm doing. Just follow my lead and everything will be good. Just go with the flow. And unfortunately, you can't do that because Britt Baker is not on Bayley's level. And I'm not saying that she should be, but you can't tell someone who usually leads a match against Riho, or somebody like that, and then say to Mercedes Moné, you can't do that. This looked like if Becky Lynch fought Tiffany Stratton a year before they actually worked. Britt Baker was a deer in headlights. She seemed lost at times. And Mercedes Moné was slowing down to try to listen, people said that Britt Baker seemed like she wasn't into it, seemed like she wasn't going along with it. I don't think there was friction with Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker. I think Mercedes Moné was really trying to help Britt get through this match. But when a deer is in headlights and the deer has never been challenged like Mercedes has with other people, this is what you get from it. You look at Jade Cargill. Arguably, Jade Cargill's greatest match that she ever had in AEW was her final match against Chris Statlander. Go back and watch that match. 3 stars for Lucky? What does that tell you? Jade Cargill, at that time, 100 and whatever and 2 or 1 or whatever it is, and the most dominant woman in AEW. And after a bunch of years, her final match going out, it ends up being arguably her best one. Britt Baker doesn't have women like Mercedes Moné on that level. See, you look at, and I'm sorry for using this person as an example, but I'm going to make my point. You look at Dana Brooke. Dana Brooke, you can't teach timing. We've brought this up many times over the years. Dana Brooke, I hear nothing but nice things about her outside of wrestling. But the one problem that she had in WWE more than anything else was timing. If you're off even by a half a second, it looks sloppy as fuck. Tanga Loa is having that problem in WWE right now. You know, say what you want about New Japan. Say what you want about everything he's done up until now. That's not WWE. And WWE, they are so tight and precise that you really, really ever see somebody fuck up. And when they do, it's usually a slip on a rope. It's usually a slip on a rope. You rarely see anybody ever fuck up. You see the smoothness. You see, remember when LA Knight was first running to the top rope and doing a suplex and he slipped once or twice? People immediately started dogging him on social media. That motherfucker did hundreds of reps afterwards. And I remember he did it one time on SmackDown after, and it was so perfect. And I was like, I'm so happy for that guy. You look at Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker running the ropes and doing the Hurricane Rana or the Frankenstein, whatever you want to call it. And you see, he goes like this right before it because he knows I fucking nailed it. Timing is everything. And when timing is not magnified under a glass and you have Mercedes Moné in there, and this is defending Mercedes Moné right now. Mercedes Moné is used to the machine of every little detail being magnified. She brings that mindset to All In, 50,000 fans, AEW's WrestleMania. Britt Baker is not used to that. And it was tremendously exposed today. So I don't blame Britt Baker to an extent. I blame that on AEW because you never, ever, ever hear reports of people taking extra reps or having somebody come in and work out with the girls. And trust me, my friends, if that happened, you best damn fucking believe, from Dave Meltzer and any other elite journalist you want to choose. And I'm not ripping Dave Meltzer right now, but you best damn believe that every fucking person that wants to kiss the ass of AEW would report it. Oh, so-and-so showed up and they worked out with the women and the women took extra reps and they did this, did that. You don't ever hear that. You don't ever hear that. And that's why that match ended up the way it did today. Does that mean that every time Mercedes has a match with someone that it's going to be underwhelming? No. Some people will nail it. But when people don't, it should not be that surprising. Britt Baker getting the heat today, you know what I think it is? You see how good, no matter how underwhelming Mercedes Moné has been in AEW, she's still a shitload above everybody else. Tony Khan just said that she's the greatest women's wrestler of all time. I know that's obviously him trying to get a date, and I'm saying that jokingly. Mercedes Moné is definitely top 10 in the last 20 years. I would put her in the top 10. I absolutely would. But the problem is everybody else in AEW is not even in the top 50. And she's trying. You could have people go global all you want. Going global is not the women's division problem in AEW right now. It's getting fucking better. And there's a lot of women that have been there 2, 3, 4 years that, with all due respect, are not very good. I know people, want to be soft online, and some people are, let's be honest, are afraid to criticize a woman. You misogynist pig. How dare you say that about a woman? I see it happen all the time. Somebody criticizes a woman, they're immediately labeled a sexist, a misogynist pig. Oh, you don't like intergender matches? You're this. Oh, you don't like that woman's writing? You're this. Oh, you think she sucks in the ring and you're a guy? Ha ha! Ha ha! Ha ha! So I don't blame Britt Baker. I blame AEW. So thank you. Thank you for that, Ronnie. Much appreciated. John. Easy peasy 2-spot. Thank you. Meatless lasagna or turkey burger with fries. Believe it or not, meatless lasagna. Give me noodles, ricotta cheese, good tomato sauce, grated cheese. Give me that all day. You could even put zucchini in my lasagna. I will still love the shit out of it. And believe it or not, Impossible burgers are not bad. Any of you out there that have Impossible burgers, they're pretty freaking good, man. I had a few. They're not bad, man. I almost had one today, believe it or not. Oh, I swear to God, we went to a diner earlier and too late to cook. And I came this close of ordering an Impossible Burger. So, yeah, sneaking the zucchini, sneaking the salami. Thank you for that, John. All right, moving on to Bernard. Thank you, Bernard. Would I agree that 2019 was the worst year of the WWE? I know I stopped watching until Vince. 1995 offer gets picked on, but 2019 takes the cake. No. Honestly, I think 94, 95 is still up there. 2019, WWE was kind of on cruise control. And the reason why 2019 is not as bad is because they still had all the talent. See, a lot of people forget that WWE stock. What year, my friends, could someone look up the year that the first year they went to Saudi? I think it was 2017 or 2018. When they hit the Saudi deal, their stock went up to almost $100 a share. And WWE went on a crazy fucking hiring spree. I think a lot of, thank you, Stinger Splash, 2018. I remember it. When they inked the deal with Saudi, I think they inked the deal in 17 and they debuted in 18. When they inked it, go look it up if people challenge me. When they announced the Saudi deal and how much money they were making, their stock ended up almost $100 a share. They signed like 50, 60 people. And then COVID hit. And then suddenly they released like 100 people. And I remember, oh, how dare they release people during COVID? That's what happens when you're a publicly traded company. You have to answer to investors. Sorry, WrestlingSnowflake.com. The investors are the ones that WWE has to answer to. And unfortunately, when COVID hit in early 2020, they had too many people on their roster and they ended up releasing a shitload of people. 2019 was not that bad. And remember, AEW came around at that time as well. So WWE was not bad. It was just they were on cruise control. Trust me, I remember 93, 94, and those were hard years to be a wrestling fan. When Hogan went to WCW, it was interesting because Hogan, in the WWF from 83 or 84 onward, and the run that he had, and to see him finally feud with Flair and them having the parade in Florida, it seemed surreal. It was a big deal at the time, and all the focus went to the WWF. But even in 95, Monday Night Raw was on the air in 95, and I remember the Bastion Boogers, and even when Diesel feuded with Bob Backlund, and Backlund had the feud with Bret Hart, I think it might have been 94. That era was not very good. I mean, they had some good wrestling at that time. I mean, I remember Bret Hart and Hakushi, which was around that era as well. They had bits and pieces, but overall, the product was very stale. And that's when I gravitated to ECW. I gravitated to ECW in late 93. And in 94, I really started to follow on a regular basis. And by January of 95, I remember, I think it was Al Snow versus Chris Benoit. ECW, January 1995. I'm pretty sure it was Al Snow versus Chris Benoit. I was hooked. And then they turned extreme, and the rest is history. 94, 95 for the WWF is still, really, really hard and brutal. I mean, it was the number 3 in my fandomhood. It was WCW and ECW. Then once I became an ECW fan, it was ECW, then WCW, then WWF. And then once 97 came around, that's when I started really focusing more on the WWF. So thank you for that. Bob the Builder, what do I think of AEW doing 3 stadium shows next year? I have no problem with it. I think they will do a good job. Earlier today, for those that are interested, AEW announced Forbidden Door in London. They did not announce the venue. A lot of people say the O2 Arena, and I agree. WWE has had events at the O2 Arena. That is a nice arena. I think it seats like 30,000, give or take a little bit. So I think that's where Forbidden Door will end up. And they're going to be a Grand Slam in Australia at the Suncorp Stadium. Now, I did do research there. That stadium holds 50,000 fans. AEW has the roster that if you tour Australia, fans will tune in. Fans will show up. I'm not trying to be a jerk. Ignore Bischoff. And look, I've been a fan of Vince Russo since the 90s. Ignore all the people that are saying a stadium show is a bad fucking idea. When you see that in the thumbnail, it's basically, guys, watch my video, help me make money. I don't believe that opinion. Somebody posted on Twitter today, in 2 days, Bischoff went from AEW has no TV deal. There will be no TV deal. And another one, this is how they should go about a TV deal. That TV deal is just about done. It's just about done. It's just a question of what content shows up on Venue Sports. You don't have to be this. You don't have to have breakfast with Tony Khan to know some of the little things going on right now. Going to Australia, Australia does not get American wrestling all that much. If TNA went to Australia, TNA could easily get 10,000 people to show up. They could get 10,000 people now, arguably in Canada, United States, if they go to the right area. AEW will be fine because they're going to areas that are a hotbed for wrestling right now. And remember, WWE just went to Australia. You know, I love Thunder Rosa. But when Thunder Rosa is kind of hinting that WWE is going to go to Wembley for SummerSlam next year, and that's why, you know, All In is postponed to 2026 in London and not going to be the annual thing. AEW is going to Australia. WWE went to Australia. AEW realizes overseas is the place to be. AEW will be able to sell big overseas. Texas, how do you think the Von Erichs are being focused right now? Because a lot of the secondary shows that they've been taping have been in Texas. As much as you love Dustin Rhodes, as do I. Been a fan of Dustin Rhodes since the 90s. As much as I'm a fan of Dustin Rhodes since the 90s. You think suddenly he got good? Oh, let's put all these titles on him now? If Collision and Ring of Honor and all this other stuff and next year's pay-per-view were taking place in New Jersey and not fucking Dallas in Texas, Dustin Rhodes would probably be hanging out at the school right now. Dustin Rhodes suddenly became a hotbed at that age. Why? Is he on his deathbed? Is this his final retirement year? Let's, do it. No, it's regional. So look at today at All In. You got your grizzled young veterans, you got your Nigel McGuinness, you got your Jamie Hayters, you got your Will Ospreays coming out on top. It was like, let's make this local crowd feel everything was a win. None of it was a Drew McIntyre Clash at the Castle moment. Nobody at Wembley today that was rooting for the hometown guys and gals. Nobody in that building was like, motherfucker, they did what they did to Drew McIntyre Clash at the Castle. Everything was, oh my God, today was amazing. Everybody that we loved that are homeboys and homegirls all got their moments. That's what this was. They'll do just fine in Australia. They'll do just fine in England. And in Texas, it will be regionalized. They will make sure that whoever is crazy over in Texas, they'll have them featured. All right. Bob also says Vince Russo doesn't even watch the product. It has so many opinions. Do I think to critique the business, you have to at least watch it? Of course. Of course you have to watch it. You have to watch it. But you know what? I say this all the time. If you could get people to tune in and you make your money, God bless them. MJF just said that about everybody. MJF is like, look, he doesn't believe, doesn't agree with half the things people say. He even thinks that some people just say shit just to get attention. but, they paved the way and they were there before him. So he understands people got to make their money. These people do this for a living. Vince Russo does this for a living. As long as you keep tuning in, he will keep dishing out these videos. He's a very smart man. He's entertaining too. I can't criticize him. I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that he says right now. Triple H, the stuff he said about Triple H and the Wyatts, this. I have said, it's been 2 months. It's been over 2 months since the Wyatt debuted. It's over 2 months. But right now, people just see it as, spectacle. And there's nothing wrong with that. See, when you're watching a 2 or 3 hour show, if you find something awesome, it doesn't require a Meltzer rating. And I'm not besmirching Dave Meltzer right now. If you're watching a movie, it doesn't require murder. It doesn't require a hero and a villain. It doesn't require violence. If you're entertained, you're entertained. If you're watching a wrestling event and 15 minutes of it involve people that are not wrestlers and you enjoy it and then you have a memorable moment from it, when does pro wrestling have to feature in-ring work every single week in and week out and week in and week out? If you've enjoyed the weekly segments of the Wyatt Six coming out there, walking down the ring, reminiscent of Bray Wyatt, doing what they do, getting a little bit of action here and there, and that's enough for you, why do they have to wrestle 10 minutes? Who wrote that? Who wrote that? So I think that's the biggest misconception out there about wrestling, that everything requires matches and a certain amount of in-ring time. No, there are people, if people are paying to see people and they're not even wrestlers, so what? What's wrong with that? How is that against the grain? It's entertainment. And Bob says, do I think people calling Triple H Papa H is cringe? Depends on who it is. It depends on who it is. The only people I find cringe, not as cringe as the two reporters in the media scrum today. My friends, I tried to watch the All In media scrum. I watched some moron while Hook, think of this. Anybody that's older remembers the FTW title in the 90s? Taz, the whole feud with Sabu and everything like that. Hook is on the stage, the media scrum today, sitting next to Tony Khan. Some idiot from the UK that claims to be a journalist goes on the mic and says, oh, the title was brought in as a joke. Do you feel now that the title is considered like another? Tony Khan is like, what are you talking about? We never brought in the title as a joke. And I'm like, I'm looking at Hook's face while this idiot is saying this. And then the idiot, pussy, if you're going to say something stupid, if you stand by your guns, I'll give you fucking credit. You have my respect if you stand by your idiotic comments. This guy, oh no, I didn't mean it like that. You said joke. I didn't mean it like that. It was a joke. The joke was a joke. Ha ha ha. Oh, you dope. Oh my God. Then Mercedes Moné sits down. And some jackass, by tomorrow we should have the idiot's name. Some jackass, instead of asking her about wrestling, he asked her about a divorce. And she's like, the fuck you talking about? And then he's like, oh, I'm happily married for 9 years. I don't care if your dick is 15 inches. What the fuck are you asking about personal divorce issues? This is why I will never, ever, ever watch a post-media scrum for wrestling ever again. Unless it's Sports Illustrated, the Sporting News, Fightful, real reporters, not the ones that have to see their name in the recap online, and not the ones who go for the gotcha, but those that are asking questions pertinent to what we just witnessed, I will not watch it ever again. So what do I find cringe? I find the people that call Triple H Paul Levesque, not because he uses his real name now, but because they feel that by calling him out by his real name, that it's giving more of a shot than calling him Triple H. Paul Levesque was asked about the Vince McMahon allegations. Paul Levesque was asking about who people named in Paul. When people do that, but they'll say Triple H for other things, you know, Triple H is doing a great job creatively right now. But Paul Levesque was asked about the Vince McMahon lawsuit. Oh, I don't blame some people asking about Vince stuff. I mean, Brandon Thurston asking at that time, that was, let me put it this way. If somebody did not ask the question, that would have been a problem. Listen, Triple H is very high up on the WWE food chain. Obviously, he's the one to ask. You don't ask wrestlers to an extent. Yeah, listen, as much as I've criticized Mercedes' work in AEW, I can't find much to criticize today. And whoever asked that question, seriously, you have no business being in that room. None. The fact that you even think that you can like bring that up just shows that you're not a journalist. You don't go personal. Plus, she's a heel. Do you expect her? He actually said to her, do you have any advice for others out there that may have gone through what you've gone through? What the fuck are you supposed to say in 30 seconds? What do you... Douche says they're trying to blur the lines between kayfabe and executive, and then they intentionally refer to the other role for clickbait. Of course. Of course they do. Of course they do. But a lot of them were just absolute, I mean, just awful. It's just awful. Listen, when Dave Meltzer asked Bryan Danielson's kid, Birdie, today, do you want to see Bryan in Tokyo? Do you want to see Bryan in Australia? That was Dave Meltzer to pretty much like say, oh, Daddy, are you going to Australia? No, Birdie, no, we're going to go home. We're going to be like birdies and fly home. But he said Australia. Daddy, I want to go to Australia. But Bryan Danielson's the one that brought his daughter on the stage. So I had no issue with him asking that question. You know, but if it was a different environment, I would have been like, all right, that's kind of creepy. So, by the way, I saw a few of you asking this earlier. Ricochet owns the rights to his name. He's owned it for a while. If you go on the trademark website and look it up, he actually owns it. That's why he's able to use it. I actually think it's very smart that he keeps using Ricochet in AEW because that's what mainstream fans know him for. Plus, listen, I like my M&Ms without peanuts. But Ricochet's a good-looking man. You know, people say, oh, I can't wait to see him wear the Prince Puma mask. I'm like, why? Why? So he can just look like Serpentico with a nicer body, you know, or somebody else with him. I listen, unless you are a famous luchador and you created a successful lucha libre career with the mask on, the guy's got the mask off and he's a good looking guy. And no, you don't put the mask back on him. You put the mask on someone who looks like the inside of my asshole. You put the mask on someone who looks like they're 50 years old, whose face looks like they're busted. You know, you look at the original, not the original Psychos, you look at the Psychos that had to unmask at AAA 2 weeks ago. You know, we had that little issue. You look when he took the mask off. When he took the mask off, I'm like, Wonder why he had the mask on. Who the fuck would root for that? You look at some of these older wrestlers right now in Mexico and Japan. They're like in their 50s. They look older than my father. My father's 75. And I'm like, you're the one that should be wearing a goddamn mask. Look at Sting. Look at Sting. Sting looks amazing still when he's got his outfit and his makeup on. You take the makeup off and you look at Sting outside of his element, he looks like a grandfather. He's old. It's nothing against Sting. Why do you think the missing link up until he stopped wrestling in his 70s? Why the missing link? Still put on the green paint. Because he looked a lot younger and he looked better. All right. Let's head back over to the chat for a few, the super chat for a few more questions. Bob, wish WWE would license songs for their top stars. I don't know. I mean, I still think of ECW stars, and I still think of music from then. I still hear regular rock songs, and I think of ECW wrestlers when they come out. With WWE, though, I don't think it's really necessary. I got news for you. Some of my favorite songs growing up as a wrestling fan are not like Guns N' Roses or Kiss or, anybody else out there. The exception of the rule, I think Hogan with Voodoo Child was badass. That one, I wish WWE never dubbed over when he was doing Voodoo Child. It was just great when he used to come out to that. It just fit. It just was a cool song. But I don't want regular songs licensed to a lot of wrestlers. Because if they license it, other people could license it. I remember Welcome to the Jungle. A lot of people don't know that Bam Bam Bigelow used it, and the Steiners used it, and like 15 wrestlers used it in wrestling. Oh, you remember, Welcome to the Jungle? And you're like, yeah, a lot of wrestlers used it. I kind of like hearing a song, and it's like, yeah, Ultimate Warrior. That's it. No Ultimate Warrior, no this person from here, just one person, one song. I'll stick cotton balls in my ears if Def Rebel ever does Voodoo Child. I'll get back to the other one, Bernard, in a minute. Dream 101. He hates how Triple H books people. Oh, he hates how Triple H books black people. And don't give me NXT. He takes over, and they all vanish from TV unless they're twerking or dancing. Bobby could still go. I think you mean Bobby Lashley at 48 years old. Listen, I know you're black. I'm a white guy. I'm an Italian guy. I may not be the best person to answer this, but I'll say it like this. When Bianca Belair was on top, nobody said a word. When the Hurt Business were on top, nobody said a word. When you had black wrestlers on top, people don't say a word. The minute somebody starts not being used the way that they were used before, they're treating all the black wrestlers like shit. Right now, it's not Naomi's time. Jade Cargill is on the rise. Jade Cargill, if she stays committed, will be looked at as one of the biggest wrestlers in history. Bianca Belair is mapping herself out to be one of the greatest wrestlers of this generation. Sasha Banks. You look at, there's a lot of wrestlers who are black that did a pretty damn good job. Bobby Lashley is very expensive. And Bobby Lashley at 48 years old, WWE does not want to put the world title on again. WWE does not want to put the Intercontinental title on again. Bobby Lashley, they don't even want to put the tag team title on again. They want to use this time for others. Now, I will admit, the Street Profits, Cody Rhodes. Look at how they treat Cody Rhodes. I get the joke. Look at the Street Profits. I hate how they're using the Street Profits right now. I hate it. And when people were criticizing Trick Williams, look what they did Trick Williams dirty. No, they didn't. Trick Williams is not ready for prime time yet. He's not ready for prime time yet. They did a little run because he was so hot chasing a title. You had to give him the reward. You couldn't, it would have been the Lex Express NXT version with Trick. They gave him the belt. He had it for a little bit. It started to really fall flat quickly, and they said, okay, we gave him a taste. Let's pull back. Let's not expose it, and let's move on. And that's why you have what you have now. I don't think WWE is misusing really any black wrestlers right now. Other than my biggest problem is the Street Profits. Because this is 2 years of this shit that they've been doing. I don't understand why they just seem to have a problem pushing them to the next level. But NXT has a lot of black talent there. But remember, this is their developmental. Not every person is going to rack up wins. Not every person is going to look like they're getting pushed. It's rotating. If you look closely, you saw a little momentum with, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Metaphor, Lash Legend. It was about 2 months ago. People like, oh, I wouldn't mind if Lash Legend was champion. She was on a roll, but it wasn't the right time. Then Jakara Jackson. Then you see what I'm saying? Like there's a rotation right now. They're still learning. It's still developing. I think, look, we got to stop looking at wrestlers by skin color. I disagree with it. I mean, if DIY were black right now, you think there'd be more of an uproar right now after the Bloodline beat them in Cleveland? I think there could be a bigger uproar if they were black. And I'm like, no, you can't think like that. If I could reverse anybody's treatment in recent memory, I would wish WWE would not have had Brock beat Kofi Kingston the way he did. You know what it felt like? And this is such a hard analogy to put, but this is the only way I could say it. When Brock Lesnar beat Kofi Kingston, this is how it felt to me. It felt to me, pretend you have a dog and you bring home a rubber ball. And the dog, every fucking day, you cannot part with that ball. That dog is playing with the ball week in and week out and week in and week out and week in and week out and just loves that ball. And then all of a sudden, one day you throw the ball and the dog is like, the fuck you doing? I don't want that. And you pick up the ball and you throw it again. The dog is like, I don't want that. You wash it, you clean it. Maybe the ball smells like shit. The dog suddenly, I don't want it anymore. I don't want it anymore. That's it. Done. That's what it felt like when Vince took the belt off of Kofi Kingston. I don't know why they did that. I don't know if Vince's mentality was fans would be on the side of Kofi even more. Because remember, Daniel Bryan lost at WrestleMania in how many seconds? I think that was kind of the mentality. I think when Bryan Danielson lost at WrestleMania in like 10 seconds, whatever it was, not too long after that, there was this big movement for Bryan Danielson. Fans got behind Bryan Danielson. That's fucked up. And Bryan Danielson turned it into something major. I wonder if WWE, listen, the difference is obviously Kofi was already champion. But I wonder if Vince McMahon had the mentality that, oh no, this will get Kofi over even more. The next time around, he'll be even a bigger champion. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what Vince was thinking. I do know Vince had a toy named after Kofi. Maybe the toy broke. I'm sorry for sounding like it. Maybe the toy broke. Maybe he was with Janelle and he was like, damn it. Change the batteries. Damn it. Still doesn't work. Yeah. Then he saw Kofi on TV. Every time I see him, I think of that. Take the belt off him. I know. I'm jumping the shark right now. Bob says the only thing good coming out of Scrums was a CM Punk promo. You know, Tony Khan, some people are calling it a jab today. Tony Khan said that it's much easier to run Collision now than it was a year ago, that it's much calmer and it's easier. Some people are taking it as a shot towards CM Punk. I honestly think Tony Khan is right. I think, you know, you get rid of the voice of the voiceless. You get rid of the ones who are kind of like a little bit of ruffling the feathers. You know, things seem calmer. You know, I kind of think Tony's being honest there. I don't think it's necessarily a shot on CM Punk. But CM Punk's promo, listen, it was definitely the bad place to do it. But trust me, I talk to people that work in AEW that cannot open their mouth because they ain't going to get this kind of money anywhere else. WWE's not going to hire them. They're not going to get it on the indie circuit. So they keep quiet. CM Punk truly, out of his whole career, CM Punk at that media scrum was truly the voice of the voiceless in AEW that had to deal with the bullshit and the politics, but could not speak up because this was their livelihood. Some people have kids. Some people are married. Some people had just bought property. And this was their income. And the last thing they were going to do is put themselves in a position so they keep quiet. CM Punk was the voice of the voiceless. Seriously. All right, we'll get back to that one. I like this one, but we'll get back to it in a minute because that's little expanded. I'm right. Steve Fall asked Lyra Vicaria about Sasha Banks. What the fuck does Sasha have to do with Lyra? I don't listen. If somebody asks Lyra Vicaria about Sasha Banks, I don't see anything wrong with it. There might have been something from the past where she name dropped Sasha Banks. You know, she's been around for a while, and there are some women out there that do want to face Sasha Banks as a bucket list match. Jay Cargill just said that she wants, listen, somebody just asked Jay Cargill, and you can have anybody, pick one person that you'd love to wrestle right now that's in the WWE. And right away, my answer, I thought, would be Charlotte Flair or Bianca Belair. Her answer was Rhea Ripley. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. You know, it's a great choice. It's just, you know, people look at people differently. Plus, you got to understand, too, the women in AEW are not at war with the women in the WWE. They're not at war with the women in NXT. Everybody roots for each other. As crazy as that may seem, most people in wrestling root for each other. They want to see each other succeed. There's a lot of wrestlers in AEW that root for their WWE counterparts and vice versa. Some people choose to keep quiet about it because they kind of feel that, you know, there might be somebody in the company that doesn't like somebody that they really support, so they'll kind of keep quiet about it. But there's some people very outspoken about it, and that's a cool thing, man. That's a cool thing. Rams fan is asking my thoughts on Jack Perry using glass at All In. I've said this for a while, and I'm telling you, this is just speculation, opining, but I'm telling you, sometimes I get this gut feeling, and 9 times out of 10, I'm right. I think my track record speaks for that. In my honest opinion, I don't think CM Punk and Jack Perry dislike each other anymore. I honestly don't. I actually think one day you will hear CM Punk give Jack Perry credit that he took this situation and turned it into, you know, something to try to make money off of it. Remember my thumbnail where I put jackals? I actually had to write the definition because when I first posted it, people were like, what does that mean? And I was like, you don't know what jackals means? That's somebody who's taking advantage of a bad situation. I think Jack Perry showing up in Chicago with a jacket that says scapegoat and having the Chicago flag colors, and he got cheered. That guy got cheered in Chicago. You think suddenly Chicago loves Jack Perry? Nah. They were like, you know what? That motherfucker, he's trolling. And people gave him credit for it. I honestly think CM Punk and Jack Perry do not have a hatred for each other. I think one day, I don't expect Jack Perry to say anything right now because obviously the Elite storyline, plus it would kind of screw up his character. But I think down the line, maybe a year, 2 years down the line, you're going to hear something where there's a little bit of respect towards Jack Perry and CM Punk. I think CM Punk one day is going to say, you know what? He grew up a little bit. You know, at the time, immature, but you know what? I think he grew up. Listen, CM Punk, he didn't want glass for the obvious reasons. They did glass today. All right. You know, it doesn't mean that anybody that uses glass in wrestling, CM Punk's going to think they're an idiot. I don't think it was done as a big this to CM Punk. Of course, the fans today said, fuck CM Punk. Who wouldn't? Because they think of All In last year. They're in Wembley. They remember what happened with Jack Perry and CM Punk. He uses glass. Of course. Of course. You know, I remember, it's such a bad example, but I'll throw it out there. I remember Steve Austin wrestling in ECW. We were at the ECW arena, and Steve Austin was wrestling. And he fought Mikey Whipwreck. Mikey Whipwreck was the champion at the time. And Steve Austin had just gotten let go from WCW. He was doing those Monday Night Will vignettes. And he had a match against Mikey Whipwreck for the ECW championship. And Mikey Whipwreck ended up beating him. And I remember he pulled the tights and it was a moon over Broadway. I think that's what they said on TV afterwards. But something that happened during the match. Steve Austin, when he left WCW, there was a dislike for Ric Flair. He had cut a promo. I know we're not supposed to say anything bad about Dusty, but if people remember, Steve Austin cut a promo in ECW complaining about Dusty Rhodes, you know, where Steve Austin pitched an idea to Dusty Rhodes, and Dusty Rhodes is like, nah, we're not going to go with that, baby. You know, it didn't mean that Dusty Rhodes was suddenly evil, but Steve Austin was, in his promos, was venting his frustration with Ric Flair, venting his frustration with Hulk Hogan, venting his frustration with Dusty Rhodes. He even said that people thought he was a Hulk Hogan wannabe because the way he had his hair. And remember, he did the Steve-O-Mania promo. Well, in the building, in the arena that night when he fought Mikey Whipwreck, a Hogan chant broke out. And the crowd was trolling Steve Austin. They were going, Hogan, Hogan. So he started doing Hogan stuff in the ring. He did the leg drop. He went like this. Mikey kicked out. And when I watched it on TV like a week or two later, even Joey Styles like, that crap ain't going to get a win in ECW. Doesn't mean that Steve Austin had this bitter hatred for Hulk Hogan, but he went with it. So I think today with the glass, I mean, it's a spot with Darby Allin, and they went with it because it was All In, because of what happened last year. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Plus, Jack Perry doesn't need to answer to CM Punk. BobbyMeans says he thinks we're on a collision course for Bianca versus Rhea. It'll be epic. Plus, he thinks the NXT women's division is the best in North America. You know, I don't have it in reach, but I found a couple of NXT events from 2 years ago. The posters where it's autographed by everybody. I look at Io Sky and so many, Asuka and others that have come out of the NXT. And yes, I know Asuka was big in Japan, but I think a lot of people forget, you know, listen, I get the people out there that still bring up black and gold. Like they think they're making a statement. Oh, the black and gold. Yeah, the black and gold drew 600,000 fans. You were one of them, but it still did not make money for WWE. Sorry. Black and gold was not the greatest era of NXT. But here's my point. You look at the main roster now, it's mind-blowing how many people came through NXT. So you look 2 years from now, a lot of the women that are in NXT now are going to be on that main roster. And some of the women that you have on the main roster will not be there in 2 years. They have a very, 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 very strong women's division. And there's no rush for a lot of women. Listen, I brought it up the other day. I'm a little frustrated that they can't find something better for JC Jane. I still think JC Jane and Gigi Dolan should have never broke up as Toxic Attraction. They've never been the same since. You know, I think eventually they will reunite as a tag team. But, you know, once WWE starts taking women's tag team wrestling a little more seriously on the main roster, I think that's when you'll see it a little bit more. Remember, they got rid of the NXT Women's Tag Team Championships because they wanted to focus more on single stars. So they want to develop that crop of talent. And then they figure, okay, once they go to the main roster, then we could kind of like put two people together. You know, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn were not originally a tag team. Now they kind of fit like a glove. And now you put Blair Davenport in there and she kind of fits with them as well. Jeff is asking, this is good. Where's Miro? He's probably sleeping in Bulgaria. It's like 3:00 in the morning. Long-time listeners know why I said that. No, Miro, AEW is just not using him. They couldn't find a place to use Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks is done. I mean, how you not find a spot for Ricky Starks? I mean, even Nigel McGuinness. I mean, it was cool to see Nigel. Listen, if we can have fun with Pat McAfee in the Royal Rumble, we can tolerate Nigel McGuinness in the gauntlet. But the fact that there was only like a dozen people, you know, how do you not put Ricky Starks in there unless he's done? Unless he's done. Miro, they're just not using. They're just not using him. And it's a shame. It's a shame. That guy will be back in WWE. And under Triple H, we'll see how far he goes. Lana's not even there anymore. You would think, okay, they split up. Maybe they don't want them working in the same buildings together. But she's not even there anymore. So why not bring him back? Ricky Starks, Kevin, does not remind me of Sonny Siaki. I got to meet Sonny Siaki a few times. I worked the show with him in XPW. And Sonny Siaki, very, very, very quiet person. Very quiet. Very, very intense person. That's one thing I will never forget about Sonny Siaki. I think I might have told this story once before. He had a match in XPW, and he was in the back of the ECW arena. And I was in the back also, and he was probably about 15 feet away from me. And he was literally just walking back and forth, pacing back and forth, looking down, like really, really focused. Did not have any they didn't have earbuds. It did not have any headphones on. Was just pacing back and forth, like getting into a zone. And I don't remember who I was talking to, but I'm like, oh, he's fucking intense. Like, he, very quiet, very intense person. That's what I remember about Sonny Siaki. I don't think Ricky Starks is anything like Sonny Siaki. They might have a similar physique, but Sonny Siaki, I tell you, I'm a little surprised Sonny Siaki got out of wrestling as long ago as he did. He actually, I thought, was very, very talented back in the day. Very talented back in the day. All right. I want to get back to Bernard. Thank you for this 10 spot. For my first promotion, Fire, Hire, Shadow Ban. This is commentary. Fire, Hire, or Shadow Ban. Shadow Ban is more like they don't know if we're interested or not. We just ignore them. Tony Schiavone, Jim Ross, Joey Styles. I would hire, boy, if it's Jim Ross in his prime, I got to hire Jim Ross, as much as I love Joey Styles. But if it's Jim Ross of today, I would shadow ban Jim Ross because I would feel bad to hurt his feelings, Jim. He's not what he used to be, but he still could do it. I mean, he's still like, it's like you bring him back for a Hall of Fame, like commentary for like an old timers game. That's how I would use Jim Ross right now. Kind of like when they used Bobby Heenan in the gimmick Battle Royal for the WWF back then. Remember Gene Okerlund and Bobby Heenan doing commentary? That's kind of how I would use Jim Ross. And not for comedic, but I would shadow ban Jim Ross because I just would feel bad to say anything. I would hire Joey Styles and I would fire Tony Schiavone. Booking: Paul Heyman, Dusty Rhodes, Vince McMahon. If it is the Vince McMahon of today, I would legitimately, I would shadow ban him. No. I would shadow ban Dusty. I would feel bad. I would feel bad to tell Dusty, just like Jim Ross. I would feel bad to tell Dusty, like, Dusty, nah, it's 280s. It's 280-ish. It wouldn't work in 2024. Vince, I would fire because I think Vince got out of touch and I think Vince got very, very lazy. That's the best way I could describe WWE in the last 6 years. Lazy. I still, listen, I think the New Day and the Usos feud is one of the greatest feuds in the last 10, 15 years. But I do also remember at times, like just when they're showing signs of respect in the ring and 2 months later they're fighting again. I'm like, this again? It kind of felt like, all right, you know what, let's put them back in the match. Remember Sheamus and Randy Orton? A lot of you may have forgotten about that. Go look up how many times Sheamus and Randy Orton have fought each other in their careers. It'll blow your mind. And they did it so many times that if I remember correctly, the fans started trolling them. And they were doing the wave. They were chanting Michael Cole. That's when Michael Cole still was hated by most people. Fans got so goddamn tired of Randy Orton versus Sheamus. Go look up on my website, DonTony.com. Just type in Sheamus, Randy Orton. And Kevin and I have done episodes, maybe even 10 years ago. We were like, oh God, they did it again. They did it again. And Kev would be like, oh yeah, Randy Orton, Sheamus. We got so fed up with it. We almost laughed sometimes. I even think we played the Groundhog Day song. Remember, I Got You, Babe. Remember when it flashed from 5:59 to 6 o'clock? I remember we did that one time. We actually played that song because they put Sheamus and Randy Orton on Raw. Now they don't do it no more. And wrestlers, Hogan, Austin, Cena. Boy, that's hard. I mean, believe it or not, I would shadow ban. See, we're not in the 80s anymore. I'd shadow ban Hogan. I feel bad. Hulk. Outdated. You know, even if he was in his prime right now, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, brother. But you're a Trump supporter. Go fuck yourself. That's pretty much what people would say. You know, so I would shadow ban Hogan. I probably would fire Austin because Austin was on top for such a short amount of time. Don't get me wrong. You're putting a gun to my head here. Cena was reliable for a very long time. Although, if I had to choose, I'd choose Austin over Cena. And announcers, Mean Gene Okerlund, Howard Finkel, Tony Chimel. I would absolutely fire Tony Chimel. I would shadow ban Mean Gene. Anybody I shadow ban I kind of feel bad for, I would hire Howard Finkel. I used to love Howard Finkel's voice. And the history show, I think it's this week's history show or last week's. You tune in, download the history shows I put up every week. It's either this past week or the week before. It was, I think, Lillian Garcia versus Howard Finkel. And he was talking about how, I don't know if he said to Lillian, like, you know, like, who did you screw to get to the top? Oh, yeah. Howard Finkel was talking about people getting screwed. And he's like, speaking of screwed, Lillian, I wonder who you screwed to get to. Howard Finkel, they turned into this perverse, dirty old man. And he had that tuxedo evening gown match against Lillian. And Howard at that time, he was my favorite promo cutter. Howard Finkel is the dirty old man. Honey! And he was talking about the prostitutes in New York City. He's talking about that, about Lillian. And I think, remember, he was talking about to Stacy Keibler. And he said something like, something was growing. And he goes to Stacy like, speaking of growing, something's growing in my pants right now. And I was like, how the fuck is he saying this stuff on TV? I know it's politically incorrect now in 2024, but I think that is so underappreciated. Dirty old man Howard Finkel at the end of his WWE career was spectacular. A million times more entertaining than Tim White stuff. Oh, Howard Finkel was amazing doing that because it was so believable. It was so believable, man. That was good stuff, man. That was good stuff. Let's see. Okay, so we're caught up on Super Chats. Let's go back to the chat room. We're in an hour and 45 minutes. Remember, I still got to do the daily news update. We got a lot of stuff to cover there. So we'll be wrapping this up soon. What do you guys want to talk about? I'm telling you, for you younger people out there, look up the Howard Finkel stuff. I promise you, just look up Howard Finkel, Lillian Garcia. Just watch it. You'll be like, it is kind of funny looking back on it. Tristan is asking, what did I think of the Invasion storyline? And what do I think WWE could have done better? Listen, Invasion, I've said this so many times over the years. Invasion did 800-something thousand buys. I get it. What culture and all these countdown sites that are all in their 20s and 30s like to write blogs saying that the Invasion was the worst angle in recent history. The only thing that sucked about it was they didn't have the biggest names that were in WCW at the time. They didn't have Goldberg. They didn't have Hogan. They didn't have Hall and Nash. But the thing, and listen, I hated Stephanie McMahon as the owner of ECW. I wanted to set that leather fedora, leather hat that she had, the cap with the ECW. I wanted to set it on fire when I saw that. I almost wanted to throw up. I knew it was storyline, but here's the thing. I was doing hotlines at the time. I watched it in real time. I covered it in real time. I had tons of feedback from everybody who tuned into the hotlines. People left messages. There's a reason why Invasion got 800,000 buys. People have revisionist history now because they've realized that so many people have shit on it as years go by because they just look at results. They're like, Buck Jindrak, Sean O'Hare, Chuck Palumbo. And fuck's the Goldbergs? Where's the Ric Flairs? Where's this? Where's the Stings? They didn't live through it. Or they were still in diapers and drinking baby bottles at the time. And I'm not criticizing them, but the point is this. When the Invasion pay-per-view came and you had the Vince McMahon head on, half of Vince's head on this, I still remember it. Half of Vince's head on this side, half of Shane's head on this side. Black background, Invasion. We knew who was on the card. There was no surprises. Nobody was reporting at the time. Wade Keller, Dave Meltzer, PW Insider, when they were OneWrestling.com still. Nobody was reporting. Oh, everybody is speculating. We believe that the NWO will show up. We expect Goldberg to make a surprise appearance. Guys, Ric Flair is in there. We knew everybody that was on that show, we knew who was going to be on it. It did 800,000 buys. It did more than that. Why? If the card was so bad, why did 800, almost 900,000 people spend that kind of money and have the biggest pay-per-view in history? The biggest pay-per-view buy rate in history. If it was that bad. It was not bad. It could have been better with bigger stars, but we accepted it at the time because you did have the ECW aspect. You had your Rob Van Dams, Mike Awesomes, and Taz, and everybody else. So it was not as bad as perceived today. That is something that we have noticed as the years go by. More and more people say, it sucks, it sucked, it sucked, it sucked. Oh, really? So we were all morons that bought the pay-per-view anyway because we just felt like losing $40 at the time? No. Cause and effect. That is such a loaded question to say this late in the evening on the weekend. What is my most compelling yet underrated storyline, as well as a storyline that emotionally broke my heart? That's loaded. Broke my heart. I don't know if wrestling ever broke my heart. Underrated storyline? Oh, I don't know. Underrated storyline? Can't think of anything offhand. Broke my heart? Can't think of anything. When Sergeant Slaughter turned his back on his country, maybe that was underrated. I know you got death threats, because of it, but I think that could have gone even further, and then they kind of had to pull back on it. Maybe that was kind of like underappreciated. All right. I wouldn't say broke my heart, but pissed me off. Pissed me off when ECW came back on Sci-Fi. One of my closest friends at the time, Timmy Austin, ECW zombie, who has passed on. He's the first ever person on the show. I cried when I saw him on the show. I loved it. But I also saw fucking Mordecai with bangs. Oh, outside the arena. I remember they had the billboard, ECW tonight live, and there was a full moon. And it's sci-fi. And I see, ow! And I'm like, the fuck is this? So it didn't break my heart, but it pissed me off. Wrestling doesn't break. Wrestling is supposed to break your heart. Like Drew McIntyre losing in Scotland breaks your heart. There's a bigger storyline here with CM Punk. There's been wrestlers that have lost matches that I wanted to see win. It doesn't break my heart where I'm like crying, like, I can't believe he lost. It's entertainment. I get mad. I get upset, but I don't lose sleep over it. Like if Cena wins, I still go to sleep. Or you go home. Remember the sign, if Cena wins, we go home. As a wrestling fan, you could be annoyed. Son of a bitch, they kept the belt on him. Damn it. That's fine. Wrestling is supposed to break your heart in that sense, but not in the sense where people are like, oh, I wish you would die. Demarcus, cringier moment. Is it still real to me, guy, or the guy crying in the audience when Macho and Elizabeth reunited? That wasn't a guy in the audience. That was a girl. I remember Bobby Heenan was laughing at her. She had like curly hair. She was ugly. Let's be honest. She was ugly and she was sobbing, and Bobby Heenan was laughing, and I couldn't stop laughing when I saw that. That was funny shit. When they were panning the crowd. Was that when Macho, will you marry me? Oh, yeah. The guy, it's still real to me, damn it. I can't crap on him. The guy still loves suspension of disbelief. He still wanted to feel that it was real. I've said this so many times over the years. You guys that never tuned into my hotline in the 90s, you missed a time that was just almost bizarre at times. And I'll never forget, of all the years ever doing this, I'll never forget one time. It was 1999. No, it was 1998. Was it 98? I'm trying to think because Tommy Dreamer was part. No. It was 1990. Yeah, it was 98. Did a poll on my hotline. Is ECW real? And 75% of people, I mean, I don't think I said it like that. I just said, is part of ECW real or is it all entertainment? And I think the results were like 75 or 78% of people thought that not all of it is real, but some of it is. Some people, I mean, majority of people thought that aspects of ECW was real. I mean, it's just an insane thing to think of all these years later. At one point, people legitimately thought that when Raven had a feud with Tommy Dreamer, I think in a bar, and Tommy fell down like a flight of stairs or something like that. I remember fans, like a year later, because I started my hotline in 97. I remember fans like a year later saying, you know what? I think, Raven and Tommy Dreamer, now it's storyline, but when they were fighting early on and they were brawling in the bar, that shit was real. You'd be surprised how many people believe that. It's kind of mind-boggling, but there was a time people believed that. And I even think Paul Heyman has revealed that also. It might have even been in the original ECW documentary that Paul Heyman said that a lot of fans at the time would say, that's sports entertainment. That is real. Roderick Howard, my thoughts on the Young Bucks. Physically talented, but not all-time greats like others. They're good. I mean, they're very talented. They're not Hall of Fame level, but they definitely are talented. They're multifaceted. They actually do have worth behind the scenes. I think a lot of what they do is sometimes too scripted. Listen, I get that when somebody dives out of the ring, you got to catch them. I used to have to do that. And it's actually fun if you know how to do it. But the camera work in AEW, it's been better, but the camera work even 2-3 years ago was horrendous. And you look, and if you focus on the Young Bucks, you see them get in a position, and you see them bending down, waiting to take a move, and it's too visible. But I find that more fault of the cameramen than anything else. So, maybe if the camera work was a little bit better, that wouldn't be so apparent. But even today, if you watch the match at All In, some of the spots that they were doing, it was really, really scripted to the point where you see people waiting to take moves. And I hate seeing shit like that. And WWE's guilty of it as well. I mean, WWE is absolutely guilty of it as well. Some of it is obviously really apparent. I remember when Io Sky dove off that cage with the trash can over her head. It was a cool fucking move. But you go watch it at that time. If you focus all on the women, they're all grabbing each other, like trying to get in the position, getting ready to catch her. I mean, it's, I don't know. I think the Young Bucks are definitely an upper tier team, but I wouldn't put them anywhere near the level of like the Hardys or some of the legendary teams of yesteryear. I admit, Bob, I am very, very surprised they did not announce a TV deal today. They had some big announcements today, no question. All In 2026, Wembley. Forbidden Door, England. Grand Slam, Australia. Those are big, big announcements. But remember, and here's the difference, those announcements could have happened whether they had a TV deal or not, whether they drew 100,000 today or 1,000. If Tony Khan's checkbook is open, those announcements could have been made, even if AEW was on the verge of closing. I'm not saying they're in any trouble. My point is, as long as Tony Khan is willing to pay the money to have those venues for those shows, those announcements were going to happen no matter what. I'm a little surprised the TV deal was not announced today. I'm a little surprised. I don't even recall if they announced an attendance today. I don't recall an attendance being announced today. And I think the reason being is because, and I'm not trying to sound like a jerk right now, I thought All In was great. I thought it was a lot of fun. I can't criticize the event. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give it a solid 8. But I'll say this. Now you understand why I hate using the term tickets distributed. I freaking hate it. That is just a cop-out, loser excuse to try to make something appear bigger than what it was. I tell you, like I said, you look at events, baseball, football, basketball, total attendance paid. Total attendance paid. Total attendance paid. You don't hear, you ever hear tickets distributed before wrestling? I'm not going to get in a whole rant about the ratings thing again, but that reeks of what they used to do with TNA. Well, the ratings got so low, we no longer say 0.4. We'll now say 310,000 viewers. It sounds bigger. I think today it was revealed that a hell of a lot of tickets were distributed. A lot of tickets were distributed. And quite a few people did not show. I said they'd have 55,000 to 60,000 in attendance. And they could still very well have had that. I don't know what they had today. But I think if it ends up being like 45,000 or 48,000, then you're going to realize, okay, about 5,000 tickets were distributed and people did not show. Then you got to say to yourself, okay, if 5,000 tickets were distributed and they did not show, how many tickets were distributed in the first place? Remember, usually about 10 to 30% of tickets distributed, they actually show. Because even if you get a ticket for free, you still got to pay for parking. You still got to travel. You still got to walk with thousands of people. You still got to wait in lines. You still got to sit in traffic. You still got to spend money on food. You still got to, there's a lot of shit involved. It's not just, hey, I got a free ticket. Let's go. So you start thinking to yourself, what did they distribute? 15,000 tickets? That's not out of the question, guys. It's not out of the question. If you remember my mathematics with XPW and even WWE for garden shows or Long Island shows, and you start doing percentages, it's not out of the question that they didn't distribute like 7, 8, 10,000 tickets. That might be a little bit high, but it wouldn't surprise me if we find out that like 8,000 tickets were distributed. It's a lot of tickets. So I don't know when they'll announce the new TV deal, Bob, but I do believe it will happen very, very soon. I absolutely believe it'll happen. Absolutely. It's not even a question. I think in the very near future, they will announce that deal. It's just a matter of what's going to be on Venue Sports. That's really what it is. Warner Brothers Discovery lost the NBA deal. Their portfolio is not about AEW. I have to bring it up because it's still cute. When Warner Brothers Discovery had a conference call 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and they were talking about their financials, do you remember all the wrestling journalists that said, I'll be tuning into the financial call. Does anybody have any questions you want me to ask? And as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh, you poor soul. AEW is not even going to be brought up. And guess what? An hour later, AEW was not brought up in the conversation. Duh. These are the same people that a year and a half ago said at the media upfronts in New York City there was going to be a 5-year, $1.4 billion deal. Do you remember my thumbnail that I took Dr. Evil and I put Tony Khan's head in it? And he's got the finger like this. We were making fun of all those people. Do they research first? Warner Brothers Discovery was never going to be bringing up AEW and that. It was the financial call. They think that AEW is this major aspect of Warner Brothers Discovery. It's not. When you look at everything that they have, AEW is a very, very tiny little mark on it. That's why they'll renew the deal. Because it's not this huge deal that's going to make or break. And people out there try to make it seem like AEW is like this to Warner Brothers Discovery, and they're not. They're not. And I thought it was so cute 2 weeks ago when they're all like, oh, I'll be on the conference call. Like, they're trying to make it seem like they were invited. Almost like Dave Meltzer with, hey, I had this memo. A memo. Who Warner Brothers Discovery gave you that memo, Dave? Who? Call him out. Out the person at Warner Brothers Discovery that gave you that memo. You start realizing that people are full of shit, man. There ain't nobody at Warner Brothers Discovery that's talking to WrestlingHick.com. There's nobody at Warner Brothers Discovery. No shareholders ever bring up AEW. You know, it's, no. We got to keep it in perspective. They will get a TV deal. Not criticizing AEW, they will get a deal. We got these people out there that try to make it seem bigger than what it is. I agree with Bob the Builder. Tony Khan always hits home runs. On pay-per-views, just needs to focus on weekly TV. You know, it's pretty obvious that they strategically place things at the beginning of the show because of the Big Bang lead-in. If you heard my quarter-hour ratings on Friday's report, we exposed that everybody out there that was saying that AEW's rating was down because of the DNC was lying to you. Was lying to you to a T, and we exposed it. Not even a question. They lied to you. I think once this TV deal is set, I think the show will be better placed, organized. Right now, they look at areas of the show that have the biggest increases, and they try to put their biggest names there to make it seem like, and MJF and Will Ospreay only drew 701,000 viewers last week. Go home show to All In, 701,000 viewers. Remember when CM Punk and Seth Rollins had their confrontation on Raw at the beginning of hour 2? And then this was last year. They had their confrontation at the beginning of hour 2 on Raw. And Raw's rating went up 700,000 viewers. And right after that confrontation was over, the rating went down 650,000 viewers. Fans tuned in to that particular moment because they wanted to see what was going to happen. And once it was done, I'm done. With MJF and Will Ospreay, from the previous quarter to that quarter, there was no bump. There was nobody online. They're like, oh, Will Ospreay and MJF. And they even went into a second quarter. You go back and you look at the recap, they were part of 2 quarters. So people online that found out that MJF and Will Ospreay are on TV, there was no bump. You didn't have anybody online decide, oh, I want to watch that segment. That exposed something. So Wednesday, MJF, if he's on, likely right back to the beginning of the show again. All right. When I was feeling like shit, this show helped. Thank you to you and Kev for all you do. Cheers. I thank you. Much love, my friend. Listen, as much as these shows are a little escape for all of you, it is for me as well. Today was not a fun day. I literally was sleeping like a baby, and at 7 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call that the shopping center is flooded. Fuck. Because it's not just the water. It's not just the cleanup. I got to file claims tomorrow for a bunch of people. And I'm like, man, I don't want to fucking do all that. You know, so I'm a grumpy old man today. That was not fun. It sucked. But so these shows are kind of a release, you know, just hanging out, talking about what we love is wrestling. And as I noticed, the majority of the conversation today is directed more to AEW, which is cool. it's whatever you guys feel like talking about. So it's interesting. We didn't get one question about Roman Reigns today. Not even a Jacob Fatu stuff. Oh, by the way, if you want to go look for yourself, Jacob Fatu, when they were in the Netherlands, he did not have the boot on. He was actually taking pictures at the airport with a couple of fans. He had regular sneakers on. Jacob Fatu is not injured, guys. People out there that are still saying, well, the ankle might, no, they just don't know. They got it wrong weeks ago, and they still are trying to cover it by saying he's not 100%. No, you are not 100%. Jacob Fatu is fine. Jacob Fatu, they do not want an L under his record. Jacob Fatu will be undefeated up until he gets in the ring with Roman Reigns. And even that, we don't know what the outcome is going to be. As long as the Bloodline have the tag team championships, WWE Creative realized, oh, fuck. They're not keeping the belts that long. So even if Tama Tonga gets pinned, Jacob Fatu has a loss. So they surrendered the belt to Tongaloa. Enforcer, he can be a champion and enforcer at the same time. Why can't he be a champion also? Because when the Bloodline lose the tag titles, that forces Jacob Fatu to have a loss under his belt, even if he doesn't get pinned. So we give it to Tongaloa instead. Tongaloa will be the one eating the pin when they lose the belts. And I still think down the line, Tongaloa, bye-bye, go paint your face in Japan. Go do Hunico or Epico or Primo, whatever fucking Ekiko your name was back in the day. I don't have anything personal against him. He just, he's not clicking as much as the other guys. He's trying, though. I mean, and I say that sincerely. Tongaloa is trying really hard. And, maybe he will turn it around. Maybe he will. But I'm telling you, the Jacob Fatu stuff, trust me on this one. We've been right every step of the way so far. Trust me on this one going forward. That is the only reason why they handed the belt to Solo Sikoa. Because when they lose, they don't want Jacob Fatu to have a loss under his belt. So I was able to get Jacob Fatu into the show. Not intentionally, but we did. Camacho. Oh, yeah, Camacho. You believe it or not, I think for this week's history show, I could remember, I'm pretty sure in the synopsis, I think it said Camacho makes his WWE debut. This might be the anniversary of Camacho's debut, for real. Now, they got to keep Tongaloa in the storyline because of the Usos, and especially if Sami Zayn gets back in. And by the way, the stem cell injections Sami Zayn is getting, he's banged up because of a lifelong career of wrestling. He's not crippled. I'm watching websites write this up as if Sami Zayn is hospitalized in a hospital right now. He's getting stem cell injections for pain and for wellness. He's not crippled. He could still work. People are writing it in a really weird way. I'm like, do you even know what stem cell therapy is? A lot of wrestlers have gotten it. So, but Sami Zayn, they're resting him up and he's getting some treatment. And in the meantime, they're letting this Bloodline storyline develop a little bit further. Demarcus is asking, does Bronson Reed destroy Braun Strowman tomorrow? I don't think he destroys him, but I think Bronson Reed. I was thinking about this the other day. We have a Braun, a Braun, and a Bronson. Say that fast 10 times. Put them in a three-way. Braun, Braun, Bronson. Bronson, Braun, Braun. I can't say that fast. Bronson Reed's got to win tomorrow. He's got to do a power move. And maybe he does a couple of tsunamis. But he's not. I don't think he's going to put Braun Strowman on the shelf. When a big man squashes a big man, unless it's Andre the Giant and he can't walk, I don't think you should carry Braun Strowman out on a stretcher. Because Bronson Reed eventually is going to fight a champion and lose. And I don't think Braun Strowman on a stretcher really is going to help. Yeah, Big E is doing stem cell, but he had a broken neck. So it's a little different, but people that have had injuries that are banged up and, you know, a career of putting your body through a lot of stress, stem cell helps, you know, helps you along the way. You know, I would invite anyone out there to watch a YouTube video or two about stem cell therapy for athletes, and you'll get a really good understanding of what Sami Zayn's doing right now. Sami Zayn is just trying to improve his wellness and extend his career a little bit more. It's not a miracle cure, but it definitely helps. It helps. All right. Let's start bringing this home. Yeah, Braun is actually Bronson. It's true. Who will win in a fight, Ken Shamrock or Steve Blackman? A real fight? I think Ken Shamrock could take Steve Blackman in a real fight. If they were both the same exact age, Ken Shamrock, Steve Blackman could hold his own. I've heard stories about Steve Blackman, but I think Ken Shamrock, in his prime, with his MMA background, I think Ken Shamrock would probably take him. Any update on Edge? I actually asked a few people this week. He's still months away. I heard the recovery time is 6 months minimum. And when did he injure it? April? I think it might be April. Maybe it was a little sooner than that, but he's still a couple of months away. He is not returning anytime soon. I asked a few people last week because I was curious if there's any chance Edge could make an appearance, and I was told no. So I think we may get Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed sooner than you think. Problem is, Braun Breaker's not losing anytime soon. He's not losing that belt right away. So do you put a loss under Bronson Reed this quickly? I don't know about that. So I think eventually Bronson Reed will end up challenging. Listen, some people think that Gunther and Bronson Reed are still going to have a match. That would be pretty interesting, even though it's two heels. But I don't know if we should get Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed this soon. Deuce says, not Friday SmackDown, but the one before. What was the worst WWE show I've seen in the last 5 years? SmackDown the week before was not bad. It just, you know, some of them just are a little bit of a miss. I can't think back the last 5 years. What was the worst SmackDown in 5 years? I'd have to look at all the results and refresh my memory. I think a lot of the draft shows were kind of blah. Trying to think. Can't think of any off here. I have to look at results. I can't think, oh yeah, April 17th, 2020. I will say this. I think if we go back 5 years, it's got to be during COVID. Some of those shows were really, really rough. No crowds there. Thunderdome. Although I had fun in Thunderdome. I had a lot of fun in Thunderdome. I mean, it doesn't replace live fans. I want to make that clear. I would never replace live fans with TV screens. But I did Thunderdome about 15 times. And towards the end, WWE always put me on camera, which was fun. And that's why I started wearing the Deli Man stuff. I mean, I'll never forget this. A lot of you probably don't even know this or don't remember. The last match that WWE ever had for Thunderdome, I think it might have been Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair. I don't remember which match it was, but this is weird. And if you don't believe me, next week I will put the date up there and you can go watch it for yourself. I did Thunderdome about 15 times. And the last 5 or 6 times, I started wearing Deli Man, and they started putting me on camera all the time. you look up the rampway, Zelina Vega's walking up the rampway, and I'm here with Deli Man like this, holding the salami, doing poses. Then they put me behind the announcer's table. And if you go and you look at the announcer table, doing Randy Orton poses, you know how Randy goes like this? I literally had this salami, I was going like this with the Deli Man mask on, right there. Deli Man. So the last Thunderdome that they ever had, people would go into your ear. Sometimes you'd have WWE stars would be a guest. Like Miz would come on once in a while and talk to everybody who was in Thunderdome. But the last Thunderdome, the guy that worked production went into my ear. He got on the microphone, went into my ear, and it said, "Make sure you watch the last segment." I said, "Okay." He's like, just watch. And I go, and they took my screen from the side and put it right smack in the center of the camera, ringside in the camera, just for the last match. And me, I'm having a ball. If you look, I'm like this, I'm doing things, I'm like going like this, and I'm wearing the Deli Man stuff. And unfortunately, this was right at the time like Kevin and I had split already. So there was a lot of people that were not happy with me at the time. So even though that happened, there was a lot of people like, "Oh, that's cool, go fuck yourself." So it was kind of like bittersweet. I kind of wish Kevin and I never had to split, but you know what? Looking back on it, Kevin and I are tighter than ever, and we're having banger of shows, and the momentum is tremendous. So, we're still rebuilding everything, but you go back and you watch the last ever Thunderdome, look at the last match. Out of nowhere, smack center in the ringside, you'll see me right in front of you with the Deli Man stuff. And that was cool. It made me feel like a kid. I'm an adult. I'm in my 50s. Some of you are probably saying, like, DT, how old are you? It made me feel like a kid. If Sting and Undertaker would have fought back in the day, believe it or not, I think if WWE booked the match, I think they probably would have Undertaker go over. Because Undertaker, if it would have been a WrestleMania match, Undertaker was still undefeated. I don't think you bring Sting in from WCW or TNA. Remember, TNA. I don't think you bring in Sting from TNA and then Sting, who is not an established WWE superstar, was not created by WWE. I don't think you have him beat Undertaker unless that was part of the negotiations. I think Undertaker probably would have went over on Sting. I also think there would have been some type of post-match incident where maybe somebody else comes out and then Sting and Undertaker kind of like align and we kind of like forget that Undertaker just beat Sting. Remember, Sting came in, Triple H beat him. A lot of people were bitter. Remember that? In fact, this week's show, history show, it's the anniversary of Sting's debut in WWE. You look at the synopsis, look at the pictures, you'll see Sting standing on that elevated platform or whatever it is. Pretty sure it's the anniversary of Sting's WWE debut. All right, we're at 2 hours and 20 minutes. We'll finish at 2:30. Not 2:30 in the morning, 2 hours and 30 minutes. Because I still got to record the daily news update. I want to get that done. And remember, tomorrow Kevin and I will be live. And we'll talk about Raw. We'll talk about a little bit more in All In. And we'll give predictions for Bash in Berlin. Still haven't thought about who LA Knight will face. Kind of have an idea, but not going to say who it is yet. Roderick would like to know who's the bigger what if, Dakota Kai or Tegan Knox? Dakota Kai, but Dakota Kai will be back. I mean, she's obviously going to be out for about 6 months. I think Dakota Kai still has, a chance to build a good career. Tegan Knox, I like Tegan Knox. I just feel even if she wasn't injured, strange. Kylie Ray on the indie circuit? For some reason, I put Tegan Knox and Kylie Ray in the same boat. Like, I feel like they'd be like the perfect tag team in the indie circuit. I just never looked at Tegan Knox and said, yeah, she's got a big future in the WWE. Some people, you just get that vibe. You just feel like, I root for her and I like her and she's talented, but just something seems missing. I think Dakota Kai definitely has a bigger upside. Bolt Up Morgan says, is it him or ever since her return, Britt Baker hasn't been the same? Like, she comes off very bland, not like what she was in 2019 to 2022. Well, it's easy. The reason is easy. You look at AEW's usage of women from 2019 to 2022, it was far less than what it is now. Dynamite would get one match, and you'd be lucky if those matches went 5 minutes. Now you have multiple segments. Now you have bigger names. Deonna Purrazzo, Camille, Thunder Rosa is back. Mercedes Moné is in there. There's bigger names in there. And, the caliber of talent has boosted up. The amount of TV time has increased. And with that said, Britt Baker hasn't improved as much as she should have. Some people blame it on her, didn't she have a stroke or a mini stroke not too long ago? Didn't somebody report that she had like a mini stroke? Yeah, it kind of maybe like stopped her from training. She does the dentist career. Maybe wrestling is not for her. I'm not saying that she should retire, but I'm just saying, like, she's had quite a few obstacles. And if that's the excuse why she hasn't improved, well, you shouldn't be fighting Mercedes Moné then. I don't think she should be on TV at all because they built her up so much. If you put her up against Robin Renegade, people will be like, why are they using her on Robin Renegade for? So AEW needs to have a little reality check and decide what they want to do. Yeah, Sam says Britt said that she had a mini stroke. Maybe there's some after effects of that mini stroke, and maybe that kind of was a little bit exposed to it. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and I don't play one on TV. Cause and effect, what will it take to get Owen Hart in the Hall of Fame? I think as long as Martha Hart is aligned with Tony Khan, Owen Hart ain't going in the Hall of Fame. I think even though Triple H is not Vince McMahon, Tony Khan has a hatred for WWE. And I think Martha Hart, as long as she's aligned with Tony Khan, I think she feels this loyalty that even though the fans want to pay honor to Owen Hart by having him in the Hall of Fame, I don't see him in the Hall of Fame. I think until there's some fences mended between AEW and WWE, even privately, no, combined shows, no public, appreciation, until that issue, that real deep disdain goes away. I think Martha Hart has a loyalty to Tony Khan, and Tony Khan is going to donate to the foundation. He's going to donate millions, and it is a tax write-off, guys. So as long as he keeps doing what he's doing and she stays loyal to him, Owen Hart's not going in the Hall of Fame. All right, let's take two more. We're going to drop for tonight. Demarcus thinks NXT No Mercy could be a crazy good show. Debuts of some recent signings. Maybe AEW guy jumps over. Title changes. Yeah, next week I'll be doing predictions for NXT No Mercy. A lot of people are wondering if Joe Hendry could win it. And I've said this for a few weeks now. If Joe Hendry is going to win a world championship, it's going to be NXT's before it's TNA's. As surprising as that may sound, I've explained why on the other shows, but I'm not sure right now if Joe Hendry wins it. But it definitely is an interesting card. It's a very interesting card. And we may see a debut. We may. I mean, I don't know. Who's headlining next year's Hall of Fame? I wonder if John Cena goes in next year. Even though he's got that year left still, or he'll have 8 months left, he either goes in next year or the year after. I think, trying to think. It's hard to say. It really is hard to say. I think Bray Wyatt goes in. I think Bray Wyatt absolutely goes in. Can't think of anybody else. The Rock is not in the Hall of Fame, right? The Rock is not in the Hall of Fame. He put his grandmother in the Hall of Fame this year, right? The Rock's not in the Hall of Fame. Why am I drawing a blank about The Rock? Is The Rock in the Hall of Fame? Batista is not in yet. Batista never gave his induction speech. I don't think Batista headlines. I think Batista lost that chance a couple of years ago. Let me know about Rock. Yeah, Rock's not in the Hall of Fame. I could see The Rock headline the next year. I think The Rock could headline next year. I think you look, you could have The Rock, Bray Wyatt, Brian Pillman. You want to put a female in there too? Yeah, I think that's possible. I hope Lex Luger goes in the next 2-3 years. I want to see Lex Luger in the Hall of Fame while he's alive. So, yeah, Victoria will be waiting a little bit longer. Victoria will definitely be waiting a little bit longer. So, let's take 2 more questions. This is a good one. Kevin Milwaukee says, since when did Dave Meltzer start looking like Shemp from the Three Stooges? Listen, I still have a little bit of appreciation for Dave Meltzer. I'm one of the weird ones that like Jim Cornette and Vince Russo. And believe it or not, I've kind of apologized, not directly to him, but I've said publicly that I feel bad for a lot of the shit I've said about Dave Shearer over the years and Mike Johnson. I've warmed up a little bit. Dave Meltzer did a lot of good back in the day. I know, the newsletter might have been sketchy at times, but he's been very generous as well. I think a lot of people forget that. But something with his nose, though. I mean, I don't know what's up with his nose. I mean, his nose is just like this. I think that's what's changed about Dave Meltzer. If you look at Dave Meltzer even 10 years ago than now, it's like, I get it. Some women get like injections on their lips so it looks like this. Some people get injections on their ass so it's this big. I'm like, did he get injections on his nose? Or did he just like at night just look in the mirror and go like this, just punch himself in the face so his nose blood? His nose got so big. I mean, I get it. I almost want to call him Pinocchio instead of Shemp because some people say he lies now and his nose is getting bigger. In fact, hey, Brian Lance, Jim Cornette, I think you should call Dave Meltzer Pinocchio from now on. His nose is getting bigger. Call him Pinocchio. Did you hear what Pinocchio reported this week? Because I kind of feel bad to criticize him. I'm serious. How come nobody's called him Pinocchio? Pinocchio. Who's the guy, the old man? Not Giuseppe? No, Sabetta? What's the old man's name? I never watched Disney growing up. What's the old man's name? It's not Giuseppe. It's something Peppa, something like that. Somebody will know. We can't go. Who would Brian Alvarez be? Geppetto. That sounds like Geppetto. Why does that all sound wrong? Geppetto. I don't remember Disney Pinocchio and Geppetto. It sounds wrong. Just sounds wrong. Geppetto? That's his name? Geppetto? What a horrible name for Disney to name that. If I'm a little kid and I'm like doing a book report on Pinocchio, I just realized it was like Walt Disney like trolling kids back in the day hey, let's name them Geppetto and Pinocchio. These motherfuckers, they won't know how to spell it. Can you imagine somebody in kindergarten or second grade doing a book report on Pinocchio? How do you spell that? Oh my God, they would have spelled it Pinokio. Pinocchio. Okio. Why would you name them like such a horrible spelling name? Seriously, you can't just name them like John. Geppetto. Now it sounds right. Yeah, now it does sound right, Geppetto. I didn't like Pinocchio growing up. I always wanted to step on him. Just accidentally, like, oh shit, I didn't see you. Would have stepped on him. That fucking goofy head. Seriously, you want to just grab his nose. Look, this is my thermos. It has water in it still. This is like his nose. Look, I'm Dave Meltzer. Look. AEW's net worth and TV is worth $285 million. No, this would be it. AEW's commercial. T would be missing in wrestling. I'm like, oh, you scumbag. Like some people would try to stump us. Like, oh, AJ Styles, he's going to make a return. And then we look and the email address is just off by an extra letter. Like, nah, we ain't falling for that. All right, let's take one more. Let's make it good. Yeah, Britt Baker. I don't think she was just packing it in. Like I said, Mercedes Moné needs to work with people like Deonna Purrazzo. Mercedes Moné needs to work with people like Thunder Rosa. Mercedes Moné needs to work with someone like, trying to think who else would be a good one. Those two right off the bat. I would not say Camille. Camille still needs to grow a little bit more, but Camille is definitely on the right track. Hikaru Shida, to an extent. Jamie Hayter. I love the Jamie Hayter idea. And by the way, yeah, we got to bring this up. Jamie Hayter did not look like Becky Lynch earlier. Just because she had orange hair and she was wearing like bright colors. Becky Lynch did not innovate that. Plus, you're looking at Becky Lynch from like 2018. Becky Lynch don't dress like that anymore. I kind of felt bad for Jamie Hayter today. And people like, oh, she's Becky Lynch on Wish. I'm like, shut up. The man, Jamie Hayter. Some people thought that Becky Lynch was going to debut today. I'm like, they still don't understand. Becky Lynch is a WWE lifer for the most part. Unless WWE doesn't want her anymore, she's staying with WWE. It's not even a chance. So, did Ric Flair sleep with 12,000 women? No. He might have photoshopped himself in bed with 12,000 women. Did you see the Photoshop I posted on Twitter earlier? It's one of my favorite Photoshops of all time. I don't know if I could download it now. Something weird has been happening with Twitter. I'm going to see if I could download it. Something weird's been happening with Twitter that now when I save like JPEG files, it saves as JVIV files. I'm like, what the hell is this? Okay, this is saving like a regular file. Like suddenly Twitter, I don't know what it is, but they're like coming out with like old picture formats, and I'm like, what the hell is this crap? I never used this format before. All of a sudden it's happening. Let me see if I could show it to you. Let me see. I'm going to try to post it. Why is this not posting? Yeah, see, JFIF file. What the fuck is this JFIF? I could convert it. 2 seconds. Yeah, I just converted it. Here. One of my old Photoshops. Let me just put a little black background. It looks better with a black background. And then we'll wrap this up. Yeah. It takes like 10 seconds, but all right, here we go. This is the black background. Yeah. I did this Photoshop back when Roman Reigns was the Intercontinental Champion. That's me with Roman Reigns. Rick, if you really want to be Photoshopped in photos, that's how you do it. That's me. That's the original deli man with the original tribal chief. The big dog and the big salami. So, deli man. He's hanging out in the back. One day I'll do the show as deli man. The only problem with deli man is, and that's why I didn't like wearing deli man during Thunderdome. If you ever interview, if any of you out there ever interview someone that's like a masked wrestler, ask them. Say, how bad does your mask smell after like a half an hour wrestling with it? I could put that mask on and I could wash it in a washing machine. I could spray it with Febreze. I could do everything I can. About 15 minutes in, I'll be on Thunderdome and I'll be standing here and I'll be like this. And all of a sudden, like, oh my God, it smells like horse. Because there's nowhere for your breath to go. It just like soaks in the fabric and it smells like, if you have ever been on a horse, you know what a horse smells like? That's what that mask smells like after about 15 minutes wearing it. It is not pleasant, trust me. So there's no mouthpiece. You're literally, I only have the eyes. If I ever interview a masked wrestler, that's one of the first questions I ask. Be honest. Pardon my language. I would say, hey, Ray, let's be honest. When you wrestle like a 30-minute Iron Man match, does your mask smell like sweaty pussy by the time the match is over? Does it smell that bad? Does it smell like rotten horse? Like a dead horse in Arizona heat? I guarantee you Ray would be like, oh, yeah, what do you, that smell? Oh, my God, I wrestled Hoovy? You think my mask smelled? Hoovy, he smelled like a fucking inside of a 90-year-old man's ass. Who told me that in XPW? Was it Shark Boy? I think it was Shark Boy when I went drinking with him once. No, it wasn't XPW. It was after a USA Pro Wrestling event. We went to a bar on Queens Boulevard right by the hotel where we were staying. And he was telling me, he was like, I got to wash my mask. It smells like death. It smells like puke or vomit or something. So, yeah, Shark Boy was Dean Roll, one of the nicest people I ever came across in wrestling, man. I never forget. I'll leave you with this story, guys. You ever want to see something, if you were ever a Shark Boy fan, and you want to see something fun, go back and watch XPW. I don't know if it's Enter Sandman, but it's one of their first shows. Shark Boy was on it. It was Shark Boy's first ever show with XPW. And I had picked him up from the airport, and this was 2002. Shark Boy was not a household name yet. But the fans, I don't know if this was the snowstorm event, but the fans were kind of like uptight. And the entire night, they were chanting Shark Boy's name. And Shark Boy, I'll never forget, he was in the back. We were in intermission. He's like, why do they keep chanting my name? Because he was not a very famous guy. This is 2002. And then he came out for his match and got almost like Big Bill pop at Collisions tapings this week. He got a pop like that in the ECW arena. And he just didn't understand. He's like, why do they like me so much? Because nobody knew him for the most. They were just all night long. If you ever watch that video online, the entire night, I think Chris Kloss even commented a few times on it. They kept chanting Shark Boy, and there was no way to dub over it. Every match, they would chant Shark Boy's name. So, one time, he worked VPW in Long Island, and I made a cooler, and I started throwing him Budweisers. I have that video somewhere. I haven't been able to find it yet, but it's one of the last. If I could give you the Google, you could look it up, and you'll see it's something versus Shark Boy managed by Don Tony. And I made a cooler with his face on it, like the Steve Austin stuff, and we were throwing Budweisers to him. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun. But all right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. We are at 10:50 p.m. I legit, I don't even get up after this show is over. Soon as I press stop and close the server, I literally hit record and start doing a daily news update. I have all my notes in front of me. So I'm going to record that, and both episodes will be online tonight. And then tomorrow night, once again, if you're interested, Kevin and I will be live right after Raw. We'll be doing predictions for Bash in Berlin, but we also get to cover some wrestling news. We definitely get to play the clip of John Cena calling Roman Reigns the greatest of all time. Matt Cardona saying he wants to retire in WWE. And we have an interesting Zack Ryder question for everybody. We have a few other topics that we save for tomorrow. So we'll have some fun conversation there. And then that's pretty much it. So I thank you very much, as always, for the support. On the way out, if you haven't done so already, if you want to throw a thumbs up, that just tells YouTube that you like the show and maybe they'll recommend somebody else. That would be appreciated. And if you're not a subscriber yet, subscribe. You know, it's free. And that also helps. You know, it tells YouTube, hey, you know, this guy might be on to something over here. And in 3 weeks, Kevin and I will be here live on Sunday doing another special episode. So we'll start hyping that up as well. And then for our YouTube channel members and patrons, we'll do a predictions contest next week for Bash in Berlin. And then don't forget, for channel members here, starting September 1st, there's only going to be one tier for channel membership. We're going to keep everything one tier so everybody is equal because, you know, a lot of people, you know, that miss some content, want some content, they don't get it. This person signs up for this. And then, so we just want everybody just to have the same thing. You know, all the ad-free episodes, all the Patreon shows I do, you know, the daily news updates with the video and the photos added to it. And, you know, whatever else we do. But thanks, guys. Much love as always. Have a good rest of your week. And you're welcome in the comment section later on if you want to tell me what you thought about All In. People are going to ask me, I should say this now at least, my favorite match and my least favorite match of the night. My favorite match of the night was Will Ospreay and MJF. I thought they told a spectacular story. I'm surprised but not surprised that Will Ospreay won. I should have thought more in AEW mindset than WWE's mindset. The only thing is, Will Ospreay is bringing international championship back to the United States. I get it. Will Ospreay is a very popular guy. To me, he's the Shawn Michaels of AEW. You know, not on that level yet, but he's on his way. But you threw down the American championship to bring back the international championship. Wouldn't that kind of make you like heelish? You're going back to the United States. Why not call yourself the American international champion? You know, like try to blend the two. Can't do world, obviously. Can't do universe, obviously. Can't do international, well, intercontinental, technically. Hey, that's not my job. So I'm not going to come up with the perfect answer. And El Guerrero 316, thank you very much, my friend. Thank you for that 2 spot. So everyone, have a good one. Much love. Oh, my least favorite match. You know what? I'm going to go with Britt Baker and Mercedes Moné because it was hyped up. Really, Mariah May and Toni Storm tore it down. I didn't like Mariah May slapping her mother, but her mother loved every minute of it. Her mother is so happy for Mariah May. Yeah, trust me. If and I'm dead serious when I say this, if my son was wrestling for AEW and he was about to win a championship and I'm sitting at ringside, and to further my son as an asshole heel, I told my son, when you go down to ringside, slap me in the fucking face like you want to kill me. I would fucking make sure he slapped me and I would sell it like $1 trillion and make him that much more hated. Trust me, her mother is very, very happy for Mariah May. But that delivered. Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker, I'm not saying it should have delivered the same way. It was a totally different vibe. But it was really, really underwhelming. And it exposed a big problem in AEW that we talked about earlier with training and everything else. And that's a problem that's not going to go away. if anything, it may get worse unless you have Mercedes Moné commingling with the more veteran names. I think that's the only way you kind of like cover that up right now because, you know, this isn't going to improve overnight. So, all right, everybody, much love. I'm out of here. Catch you all again in the next one.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's all right. He's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.